Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Stockholm Tech Meetup. Fantastic to be with you. Hope everybody's doing well. Let me lower that funky music. We've got a lot of great news. We've got a very special meetup this time. Not only do we have one of my very dearest friends, Jason, going to be joining us shortly, but also have a whole demo day immediately following this. So if you stay tuned after the interview, we're going to have 7 startups that we had, a whole mess of Nordic startups apply to pitch for this. And then we picked the very best of those. And we have a really cool panel of partners from Northzone and EQT and by founders and Antler and Open Ocean in Helsinki. It's going to be very cool. So stay tuned for that. But as we always do, we've got a lot of cool news to go over. And a lot is happening, kind of more than most months. So let's jump right into it. And here we go. So as you probably know already, we are live at live.stockholm.tech or just stockholmtech.com. Let your friends know they can join us here. And if you're watching because you came to that website, the Stockholm Tech website, then you will want to maybe click on the little YouTube logo so that you can go into the YouTube app on your phone. And then there's a little live chat. And if you go to the live chat, not the comments, but the actual live chat. And if you leave any kind of comment in the live chat, I can put it into the show automatically. And then so make it relevant. Don't say stupid stuff, please. But I will showcase the most intelligent comments live on the screen, so you can ask questions in real time from the guests at any point or to me. And like I said, we have the remote demo day Nordics happening right after this, so stay tuned for that. And here's the first article in the news. It's a dear friend of mine who I believe is watching, Lucas, who started Scribe, a Swedish startup. It says here, Vitruvian Partners buys into growing European digital signature ID business Scribe, which of course is one of the businesses that are booming while we're all stuck, doing everything digitally. Digital signatures, of course, are booming, just like digital healthcare and many other things. So that's fantastic for them. Congrats to Lucas. And Tink raises some money. We got Amir here saying hi. Let's see here. So you guys can see, he's hiding behind my photo there. So let me move these down here. Hey, Amir. And so Tink raises money from PayPal again, which is great for them. And there's a whole bunch of Swedish companies raising money, like you can see here. Pocket Law takes in 10 million from Stenbeck again. Forsidi raises 30 million SEK, and Swedish-based Pantapa raises money. Hello, Nicholas. I see you there. And from Almi Invest. And then here's one, 83 million SEK. This is also, as I was just saying, one of the Swedish kind of healthcare online apps that are blowing up. And here's another one. Online Doctor takes in, what was this one? Oh, 500 million SEK. So that's, if that's not evidence of a really growing area, I don't know what is. And as I mentioned, Almi just invested in one of those companies. Almi themselves just raised 400 million to invest in more startups, which is great, which means plenty more to go around for everybody else. And the Norwegian Alliance also raised a whole bunch there, 580 million to invest in more startups, which is great. So the fundraisings continue. This is what a lot of people were worried about, is would startups continue to raise money, without being able to meet in person? And by and large, they are. Startups are raising money. Investors are doing deals, even in the early stages of this. So it's looking quite positive. Anyhow, this was a really interesting tweet that I found. Qualcomm did this announcement at the Augmented World Expo, where 5G enabled smartphones, which are on the horizon as we speak. In fact, 5G just became enabled since the last meetup in Stockholm. Both Tele2 and Telia both have 5G running live now in Stockholm. And if you have a 5G enabled smartphone, these visors, I think they're calling them, or viewers as it says there, will allow you to plug with a USB cable to your phone. And then because of the amazing 5G speed, you'll be able to do heavy duty augmented reality as you walk around the city in real time. And this is also coincidentally timing wise, other than the 5G, the other thing that needed was a stronger processor, which the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 really makes this all possible now. So you're going to see a sort of explosion of these, people walking around with these visors. And of course, there's already rumors of Apple's is on the horizon as well. Of course, it'll plug into their phone, and their new phone's going to be 5G as well. Speaking of 5G, China, Xiaomi is already saying forget 5G. It's already getting ready for 6G. So China staying one step ahead as usual. Kind of keeping on the China theme, Chinese investments in U.S. are going down, but going up in Europe. And the Chinese and American investments in Europe are now about parallel. But there's now this major brewing friction on many fronts between China and the U.S. And both investing in Europe. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, as we'll kind of allude to more going forward. Alibaba, obviously one of the big players in China, and this article is kind of interesting. They're hunting for a million influencers keen to make big money, and it's unfortunately hidden by my photo here, but it says they're basically replicating the success of Taobao's live streaming app. And what's happening is, and this is by far the biggest trend in Asia at the moment, I haven't really seen it come to Europe yet, or even America yet, but what's happening in Asia in a huge way is people doing live selling from their phone cameras, or like the camera that I'm on here, and they're selling to masses of audiences in real time, taking real time orders, and it's live e-commerce, and Taobao is kind of like like Amazon. Imagine if when you went to Amazon, there was people live selling you every item in there. And Taobao's doing that in China, and Alibaba, which is also kind of like Amazon in a way, is looking to replicate that as well. It's a huge, mega trend. I can't help but think it will be coming to the rest of the world soon. So just something to keep an eye on. And speaking of Alibaba again, Ubisoft is suing Alibaba because they essentially replicated one of Ubisoft's games, Rainbow Six, pixel for pixel, right down to the details. And of course, it's on Google and Apple's platforms where they're promoting this game. And Ubisoft is telling Alibaba, you stole our game. And Alibaba says, so what? But Ubisoft is trying to get Apple and Google to take it off because it's a replica of Ubisoft's intellectual property. So this is kind of a new age that we're getting into as Chinese apps become popular in the US, like with TikTok and everything else. It's becoming a whole new world, and a really interesting one at that. Sorry, I just went a little bit too far. Speaking of China and AI is another big theme. The US is putting together a G7 of the biggest countries, an AI pact, to talk about the threat of AI from China. The White House sees effort to counterbalance Beijing, and China is outpacing in the innovation and on the AI front, and it definitely is cause for concern because the rest of the world is perhaps being more bureaucratic, especially the US, which makes it run much slower, and China is able to be quite a bit more efficient and run a bit faster. And so it's going to be really interesting to watch how that plays out. So keep an eye on that. Speaking of that, this is one of the most interesting AI related innovations I've seen in a while, and I want to share this with you. OpenAI, which is Elon Musk deeply involved in, is made games that were able to, blow people's minds, and is on the very bleeding edge of AI development in the US. They also have a SoundCloud account where they have an AI creating songs, kind of by algorithmically, hip hop songs, country songs, pop songs, jazz songs, you name it, and with lyrics. So the lyrics are made by an algorithm, the melody is made by an algorithm, the whole recording is produced by an algorithm, so they're in essence able to produce songs without any humans involved and release tracks. And the question is how long, well, the real question used to be how long would it take, the algorithm to beat the best chess player? Okay, now it's not even a contest. Or the best Go, and now it's beating the best poker players. But what about when it starts beating the best musicians at composing the best songs? This is really strange to even contemplate. And they're able to mimic the voicings and the styles of Bob Dylan and Bob Marley, but it's not Bob Dylan and Bob Marley. It's an algorithm. So you could have new Bob Marley songs that aren't Bob Marley. It's truly mind-blowing, and I want you to get a little listen of this real quickly. Here, you'll see what I mean here in a second. So here is the account. It's called OpenAI on SoundCloud, OpenAI_audio. And here is a country song in the style of Alan Jackson. Anyway, so that's kind of concerning. I mean, that it sounds like a human singing that. It's not. That was an algorithm that sounded like a famous country singer with lyrics that it made itself and its own melodies and chords and produced and everything. It will be bizarre it's hard to even imagine what music will be like if algorithms, when they do get to that point. Anyway, so back to my deck here. I have just a few more slides here. Something else has happened in the world since we met last, which is George Floyd's death. And this has led to kind of earthquaking around the world. It's become a global thing. This headline says it well. Tech companies respond to George Floyd's death, ensuing protests and systematic racism. And even though it happened in America, you have Spotify making a comment, and Daniel says he's terrified by the violence that affects blacks, and Sebastian from Klarna, of course, making the comment. And then you have the Alexis, one of the board members from Reddit and one of the co-founders of Reddit, stepping down from the board to make room for a black candidate on the board of Reddit. And his wife is black. It's one of the Williams sisters, one of the tennis celebrities in America, Serena Williams. And this is and kind of related to all of this is you have Trump responding in the way that he's kind of known to do, and then you have Snapchat stopping highlighting his posts in Snapchat. You have Tinder kind of policing some of his tweets now, and then you had Facebook. Now it's become a hot issue internally, where you now have senior people within Facebook resigning over their own politics around this entire issue. And I bring this is incredibly complex. It's a multifaceted thing. We'll keep going here. Big tech companies are responding to George Floyd in a way they never did 6 years ago with Michael Brown. So big tech's role in policing the protests, not just in the responding, but because so much of the platforms are at play and how this conversation unfolds, people, want them to be accountable for the information that's shared on their platforms, and this is just becoming a very complicated issue. It gets even more complicated when you add in the AI element. Here's a great example. University deletes press release promising bias-free criminal detecting facial recognition algorithm. Researchers in Pennsylvania are the latest to claim that they could predict future crime based on a person's face, and then they delete this press release. And my point in saying all of this is that tech used to be, about the pipes of the internet, right? And it was about communication, and it was about, fintech. And then the more it comes along and the further it goes, it's now touching the news in such a way that it's influencing how society behaves writ large. And you see how now these entrepreneurs and CEOs are now having to take a position almost like a politician. And as you saw with Spotify and Klarna and Reddit and everything else, this is a new chapter in tech where tech companies need to behave almost like little political parties in a way. It's a whole new skill set that entrepreneurs never needed to have before, this skill of a politician. But I don't see it going away. It certainly seems like this will be continuing. This is another interesting one about the funding, where SoftBank, one of the biggest funds in the world, or certainly their last fund was the biggest, has a new protest fund that will invest in companies that are not led by whites. And we actually have one of these funds in Sweden that is focused on minorities specifically. Suzanne's fund, which is very cool. It's the first one that I know of, actually. And then this, again, related, IBM, this is just a few hours ago, in fact. IBM today stops work on facial recognition over human rights concerns because of how the technology could be used. And this is sort of speaks to the point where tech has gotten to this point where it's enabling and yet dealing with social issues that we never really considered. And that actually is the theme for Stockholm Tech Fest, the big annual conference that we do each year in September. This year will be September 7th and 8th. This is the first time I'm letting anybody know about it from anywhere. And let me let those two people join the room. But so now you're seeing for the first time, I'm announcing the Stockholm Tech Fest for September 7th and 8th, where we'll have the job fair like we have had the last few years, the hackathon we've had the last few years, of course, the demo day and the conference. And I had a meeting with my team today about this, who coincidentally, I just have to, we all just sort of realized we have a team of about 7 people, and there's only one traditional Swede on the team. Everybody else is actually an immigrant to Sweden of some variety. But we thought about the theme of what's going on, and we kind of went through the deck like I just did with you. And we felt like this is the topic, the opportunity that we need to deal with for this year, like we did with the UN Global Goals in 2016, when that was kind of a unique thing for tech to get into. But we feel like it's going to be wild to see how things shape up between now and September, but really looking forward to it. And I think my next slide here, have to give a huge thanks to our partners for today's event and every event now. We've been doing this for many years. Microsoft, EY, Visa, Esri, Capole, EQT Ventures, NASDAQ, the Swedish energy agency Vinga, and Nordea. Every one of these brands is very well known to Swedes, but if you happen to be a non-Scandinavian watching, Esri is the biggest, the first 3 everybody knows globally. Esri is the biggest data company in the world. Capole is a brilliant management consulting company in Stockholm. EQT Ventures is a fantastic VC. NASDAQ, everyone knows. Swedish energy agency kind of speaks for itself. Vinga is the biggest, best law firm who also love to deal with startups. And then Nordea is also one of the biggest banks in the Nordics, if not the biggest. So for our friends remotely who are joining in, and speaking of friends remotely joining in, we have Wout from EY, one of the partners, who's actually going to share a very cool thing that they've been working on called Finance Navigator. You are going to love this. I was super impressed myself. Wout, are you there?
I'm there. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah. Let's see what you can you show everybody what you showed me yesterday.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me bring up my screen. There we go. Is that working, Tyler?
Looks
Can I get
great.
a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Hi, everyone. And thanks, Tyler, for providing us with the opportunity to tell a little bit more about EY Finance Navigator today, which is our financial planning software that we have specifically designed for startups. My name is Bart Bobing. I've been working at the accounting and advisory firm EY in the Netherlands for about 6 years at EY, meaning that I founded my own corporate startup within EY with a couple of colleagues, which is called EY Finance Navigator. Now, why did we start EY Finance Navigator? That's because of the following reason. Research is showing that about 1/3 of failed startups do not make it, either because they fail to raise investment, or actually they do manage to raise investment, but they run out of cash because their spending gets out of control because they don't have much control over their financial management. And that's also something that me and a couple of other colleagues are recognizing from our work with startups over the past years. So what we have seen specifically is that many startup founders, they struggle a little bit with convincing investors of the financial potential of their company, and they also struggle quite often with their cash flow management. And I just mentioned that about 1/3 of startups don't make it because of these reasons, but I think that actually, yeah, more or less all startup founders will recognize the struggles with these two topics. And there's good reason why many startup founders are actually struggling with these topics, and that's because many of them, well, simply don't really have a business or finance background, so it can be a bit of a lack of knowledge or experience working in finance, which can be a bit problematic. In early stages, startups typically often don't have the resources available yet to hire an external CFO to kind of fill up this knowledge gap, right? And what we've also noticed over the past couple of years is that simply many entrepreneurs, they also just lack a bit of time to invest in their financial planning and in their financial management, and sometimes also a little bit the motivation to do so. What we notice is that many entrepreneurs don't really find finance, let's say, a fun topic, and they prefer to spend time on their product development or building relationships with their customers. And those challenges, that's what we're trying to solve a bit with Finance Navigator. So in essence, Finance Navigator is an online financial planning tool that we specifically designed for startups and scale-ups, and specifically also for entrepreneurs that might not always have a very strong finance background. And with that tool, we try to support entrepreneurs to convince investors of the potential of their company, and also to support them a little bit with their cash flow management in a bit of a more, well, fun way, let's say. Maybe good to make clear is that it's not an accounting tool. You know, that's something that your bookkeeper or your accountant would do. It's really a financial planning tool. So forward-looking, building business cases, which you would present to investors, for instance. And now, of course, I'm also going to show you a little bit on what the tool looks like and how it works. And for that, I'm going to use a small example. And that example is Susan. And she's around for a startup at the moment. And the startup is also being impacted by COVID-19. Now, the ask from the investor for the seed round is that Susan would deliver him a 5-year financial forecast of her company, which also shows the impact of COVID-19 on the results. I'm going to quickly show you how Susan could do that with the help of Finance Navigator. So let me bring up the Finance Navigator software. You should be looking at our dashboard right now. And this dashboard is really, let's say, the heart of the Finance Navigator software, which showing all kind of metrics, financial information that we have validated with hundreds of startups and investors over the past couple of years. So in this dashboard, we show the, let's say, typical information that entrepreneurs use to manage their company from a financial perspective. But that is also being used by investors to screen new investment opportunities. So by using our software, you can be quite certain that you're delivering the right information to an investor. And that's also why Susan is using the Finance Navigator software to build the 5-year financial forecast the investor has requested from her. Now, in this dashboard, you see all kind of relevant metrics such as margins, gross margin, EBITDA margin. If you look here on the bottom left corner, you see the break-even point of the company. If you look here at the top right corner, we have customer acquisition cost. The top left corner, we have operating expenses, for instance. The bottom right corner, you see the funding need that is automatically calculated based on the business case that Susan has made using our software. A couple of other examples, we show the burn rate as well here on the bottom right. The bottom left, we show cash flow. Maybe another interesting one here on the bottom left corner is personnel. So really all the information that Susan needs to convince the investor of the potential of her company. Now, this dashboard is one of the, let's say, output sides of the tool, which is something that Susan could share with the investor. But next to that, we have an overview that is mainly, that's really being asked by more or less any investor when they're screening new investment opportunities. And that overview consists of the financial statements. So if you look here at the top of the screen, a little bit in the middle, we have the financial statements, including an automatically, sorry, I'm being logged out right there. So let me log in again. Yeah, no problem. All right, so automatically generated as well are the forecasted financial statements. And if you would click on those, you dive into forecasted financial statements, meaning we have a profit and loss statement, we have the balance sheet, and we have 2 versions of the cash flow statement actually, on both a monthly and a yearly level. And especially this cash flow overview is very useful for the cash flow management of your company because it truly shows all the cash in and outflows on a monthly basis for your firm. So very useful for Susan to do her cash flow management. The dashboard, the financial statements, you can also switch between different views. So maybe Susan wants to have a look at what the impact is of COVID-19 on our business for the coming months in 2020. Then she can just switch the view in the dashboard to a monthly view for 2020. And then she sees all the metrics, all the KPIs on a monthly level for this year. Now, as I mentioned, the dashboard and the financial statements are automatically generated based on the input of the user. Now, what are those inputs? They basically consist of 6 different input sheets. So we ask the user and we help the user to make projections for their revenues, their cost of goods sold, their personnel, their operating expenses, investments in assets, and potential future financing streams. And I'm not going to go through all of them for now, but I'm just going to quickly show you how to input revenue streams because that will give you a bit of a feeling on how the different input sheets work. So let's open up the revenue input sheet. And as you can see here at the top of the screen, we have this big yellow bar. And in the big yellow bar, we ask for the assumptions that Susan has to fill in order to create those financial projections. So Susan fills in the data here. She clicks add, and the tool will automatically calculate the related projections. Now, based on, for instance, the business model that Susan selects, the input fields will change a bit. And this process works the same for all the 6 different input sheets. So for all these input sheets, we ask you for some high-level assumptions. You enter them, you click on add, and the projections are automatically generated. Now, as you can see, Susan has already added a couple of projections, a couple of revenue streams to her forecast. And maybe using these fields at the top of the screen is okay to create a high-level forecast. But since she wants to convince an investor of her company, of the potential of her company, she might want to be a little bit more specific on certain numbers. And that's why we also allow users to make changes also within the revenue streams that you have added. So maybe something that Susan would like to do is increase the pricing of the revenue stream that she added before. So we see that Susan is apparently selling 3D printers. They cost $5,000 per printer. By clicking on that field, you can easily change it and increase it, for instance, to $6,000 if you would like to do that. Then we just save this number, and then it will be automatically calculated. Now, by filling in those 6 different input sheets, Susan will then have a full-fledged financial plan in place, which she could share with her potential investor. If she wants to, be a little bit more certain on the numbers, and if she wants to do some comparisons, perhaps, she can also use the analysis functionality, which you see here on the top left corner of the screen. So here we have a button saying Analyze Plan, and if you click on that, an algorithm will start running, doing a check on the data and comparing the data that Susan has added to some benchmarking information that we have included in the software. Well, apparently we don't have any new notifications for now, but I'm going to quickly show you them anyway so you get a bit of a feeling on how that works. And one of the messages that I always like to show, because it's a very tangible one, is this one. One of the checks that we do is that we compare the revenue per employee or the revenue per FTE with that of Apple or Facebook. So apparently Susan has a revenue per employee of a bit more than $10 million in 2021, while a couple of years ago, Apple and Facebook had about $2 million and $3 million. So she's already outperforming Apple or Facebook, which might suggest that she's being a little bit too optimistic in her projections. And based on that, she can then make some changes to her forecast. Now, after going through these different messages, Susan has improved her financial projections a little bit. She's being challenged a little bit on her numbers, just like an investor would do, meaning she's more prepared for the meeting with the investor, and she's now ready to share the financial model with the investor. And she can easily do that by clicking the export button here on the top right corner. And doing so would generate a very nicely looking, structured, and neat financial plan in Excel. Let me quickly bring it up in the screen as well so you get a bit of a feeling for that too. So this is what this Excel looks like. Again, it's a very structured financial plan. We're now looking at the income statement or the profit and loss statement. And again, also the data in this financial plan in Excel is on both monthly and yearly basis. So you can also play a little bit with the numbers here. Now, one final thing that I would like to show you is how Susan could also leverage Finance Navigator for her cash flow projections and for calculating the impact of COVID-19 on our company. So we're calculating the financial impact on the firm. And Finance Navigator is very useful for that, because what Susan can do is she can go to her scenario overview screen, which is the first one you see when you log in. And here she can create a duplication of an existing financial plan and make changes in that second model. So if you would click on the top right corner here of this scenario and then click duplicate plan, a copy of our financial model is being generated. Now let's call this one our COVID-19 scenario. And then what Susan can do is she can make some edits in the second model and see how her original forecast is comparing to the one that is being impacted by COVID-19. Now let's say Susan has done some customer validation, some research amongst her clients, and she has found out that mainly her revenues will be impacted by COVID-19, right? That's a very likely scenario. And maybe to make it a little bit more specific, she has figured out that probably for the next couple of months until the end of the year, the number of clients will be reduced with 50% due to the impact of COVID-19. Now that's something she can then very easily do in a revenue forecast. So here we have our number of clients as of September. Apparently she was planning to launch in September. We click on it and we decrease that number with 50% for all the months in this year. We save it and the numbers are automatically being updated. Now, maybe as a second thing, one thing she also validated with her clients is that while normally they would pay for the 3D printers instantly, they might now take a little bit longer to pay. So she also includes a payment term of 30 days, which is of course impacting her cash flow. So that's also something that we're adding for the rest of the months of 2020. Now, what Susan can do is go back to her scenario overview screen and make the comparison between her original scenario and our scenario that is being impacted by COVID-19. All righty. And what we see, for instance, is that the funding need that she originally planned for her startup, which was about 465K for September 2020, has now actually increased to more than 700,000 funding needs. So that's very important information for her, especially when she is trying to raise funding from an investor, right? So that's what I wanted to, that's what I would like to show you from the tool, and how a startup CEO just like Susan could use it for fundraising purposes and for cash flow management purposes. Let me quickly bring up my slide deck again to finish those as well, because there are a couple of final things I would like to share with you. One of them being the results that we have achieved with this tool so far. So we've started promoting Finance Navigator internationally about 1.5 years ago. And as you can see on the top right corner, we've had signups from over 80 different countries, so quite successful from that perspective. And we've sold about 1,300 paid subscriptions to clients since our launch. That's excluding any free users that we also have. So if you would include those, the numbers will be much higher. But this is the number of paid licenses that we have had so far. And of these licenses, 40% more or less are part of accelerator, incubator, or other startup programs, because we try to keep close connections to these kind of programs on a global scale. And on this slide, we have included a couple of examples of those which you might recognize. So on the top left corner, you see, for instance, the Uppsala Innovation Center, where we have good connections. But we're also working with global networks such as, for instance, Impact Hub here in the middle, or Startup Bootcamp at the bottom of the screen. Now, normally, Finance Navigator is actually a paid tool. And for 3 months access, you pay about $100 US, $89.95 in euros. But what we have noticed over the past couple of months is that mainly startups and scale-ups have been impacted quite badly by the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's why we've tried to do something back to the startup community. And we've opened up the Finance Navigator software for free temporarily. And that's why I would like to end this presentation with this call to action. If you sign up before the 31st of July, you will get 3 months free access to Finance Navigator due to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can sign up through the link that is being shown on this screen. I'll keep it here for a couple of seconds more, but I think Tyler is also going to share this link with you probably later today or tomorrow, so you can take your time to sign up. If you'd like to know a little bit more on what we're doing for startups and scale-ups at EY, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to the shared inbox of Finance Navigator, which you see here at the bottom of the screen. But you can also reach out to my colleague, Carolina. She has her email here in the middle as well, which is my colleague in Sweden, very active in the local startup and scale-up scene in Sweden. So feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to learn more on what we're doing for startups at EY. And unless there are any questions, I would like to end my presentation with that. So Tyler, thanks again for this opportunity. And well, I hope you will all sign up for the tool and basically help yourselves to become more professional from a financial management perspective.
Very cool. Thank you for that.
No problem.
It's definitely useful. I could see myself using it. I think a lot of people will use it, and it's very cool that you're letting people get a taste of it for free without having to pay up in advance for it. So now to our main topic. Jason Calacanis is a very good friend of mine, and thank you for the tweet there, Jason. He's just tweeted out that we're about to go live here, as indeed we are. And it's funny, we've been doing this. Hey, man, we've been doing this event for 7 years now, a little more. And Jason has come to the Tech Fest in September, I think 2 or 3 times, and every time
loved it.
You burn the house down every time. People still talk about some of those sessions, and but it's great to have you on the monthly event, even though it is the virtual COVID special edition.
How are you?
I'm
How are
good,
you
man. How are
holding
you?
up into this? I'm losing my mind.
Yeah,
You've traveled the world with me. I'm a very social creature.
yeah,
You're a bit of an introvert. I'm a maximum extrovert, and
yes.
it is not fun for me to be in my home studio like I am right now, constantly. But it's really good news here. Regarding COVID, at least we've really got it under control. I think in Northern California, we were on lockdown maybe a week before everybody else in the US. So we got on it very early. There's almost no cases now.
Yeah.
And it's really, we're starting to learn a lot, right? So it's a big challenge for startups. It's a big challenge for society. And on a personal level, it's a challenge for me. Like I don't like being on Zoom or any conferencing software for 5 freaking hours a day. I hate it. But that being said, I am learning to embrace the tools, and there is something special like just seeing you right now and talking to you, and also talking to a bunch of people maybe in Stockholm who I haven't talked to since I was there. So we lose a ton by not being in person, but we're gaining a ton by opening the aperture of how we run businesses. And I think that was what we wanted to talk about, what you wanted to talk about today. So thanks for having me, and I miss you.
Yeah, but and it's
I
funny
can't wait
because
to
in
go
a
to
way
Tokyo.
I'm seeing you more because you're doing a new podcast. Like by the way, the
Yep.
new, I mean, This Week in Startups is a
Yeah.
standard, in the
Juggernaut.
biz.
Yeah.
But now with the new one, the All In podcast, which is fantastic, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah.
Get
It's me and Chamath. Chamath just texted me at some point, and he's just like, "I want to do a podcast with you." And I was like, "I already have a podcast." And he's like, "Yeah, I just want to do one where the two of us talk." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I got a team. When do you want to do it?" And he's like, "Whenever I feel like it." And I was like, "Okay, what do you want to do about advertise, whatever?" He's like, "I'll just pay for all the production." I was like, "Well, I have a team. I'll pay for the production." But it's basically whenever Chamath has an opinion he wants to state, and CNBC's 5 to 30 minutes is what they typically give folks, um, is not enough. We just do it. And then David Friedberg, a good friend of mine who did climate.com, and then my good friend David Sachs, who from the Yammer days and now Craft Ventures and PayPal, they got into the rotation. And now we've got like a COO operations person in Sachs. We've got a scientist in Friedberg, and then you've got like a capitalist in Chamath, and then you have me. And so it'd be it's an interesting like McLaughlin group kind of thing. I want to rotate a woman in as well, um, and maybe a journalist or some people with a slightly different point of view. But if you come to it, these are all capitalists, so it's a very like capitalism McLaughlin group, which I think resonates with people because there's such an anti-capitalism sentiment, some of which is valid, some of which isn't, and we kind of dig into that, right?
Yeah, and I'm particularly liking because it started around the same time COVID did, and it was really interesting to hear Sachs being an amazing executor, and there was this whole conversation around, oh, who are you? You're not a epidemiologist, and it's like no, but sometimes the ability to test and jive given the data and the new analysis,
Yeah.
I have to say, like the traditional system of like the WHO, which and the Center for Disease Control kind of moves a little too slow for the situation at hand. Sometimes you need some people that are moving faster. So that's why originally I found it really interesting. But then also all of the China issues that are going on. So if you, and I know you're starting to get really interested in the China. I don't know if you saw my deck a minute ago, but China's appearing more and more in the monthly news roundups that I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm pretty vocal about my feelings about China, and I've gotten a little more vocal about them. I realized, like, maybe you don't know me as somebody who pulls punches, but I tried to be a little magnanimous about the issues with China previously. And thanks for your insights on the podcast. I tried to be a little magnanimous about my, issues with China, thinking, the relationship with trend and engagement as a strategy with China would result in human rights conditions improving, right? And that's what I was told by people. Hey, Jason, you don't get it. isolating China, isolating North Korea, isolating Venezuela, isolating Cuba. This is isolation of regions that have human rights issues that are authoritarian, does not work. What works is engagement. And I was like, explain that to me. And people explained it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I buy that, but let me kind of be open-minded to it, right? And one of the problems we have in all dialogues today is anybody who's open-minded to something, or anybody who's willing to try something or change their opinion, is destroyed and canceled and annihilated in the public square, whether it's Twitter or television, et cetera. And I think what the reason maybe All In resonated with you is you've got a group of people saying, okay, let's talk about this and run an experiment, or how would you test this thesis or hypotheses in the quickest and most elegant way, i.e. the lean startup, Steve Blank, Eric Ries kind of way. And with China, I think we've seen what appeasement and engagement does. They will roll over people with tanks in Hong Kong. They will beat people. They will take a store owner who's selling books and torture and re-educate them for 2 years until they confess their sin of selling books. And then for the NBA or our movie industry here in America to support the torture of individuals for selling books. I just want to say that and let that sit there for a second. They're torturing people for selling books for years.
By the
And
way, he's a Swedish Chinese guy. he's half.
Oh, is that correct?
His daughter's in Sweden.
Yeah, and this is just one example among many. And for every example you hear of, you can be certain there are hundreds you're not aware of. And and rightfully so, because if the families do speak up, the person's going to be tortured more and eventually murdered, I would believe. So many families just say, you know what, we're just going to have to accept this torture of our family member, our father, our brother, our sister, our daughter. We're going to let them be tortured for 2 years so that we don't have to lose them to a brutal death or more torture. And that's as sadistic and insane as this is. And then the NBA and the movie industry, which you would think would be super progressive, for the extra $10 on every $100 they make, are willing to engage with a regime, with authoritarian regimes that are willing to torture booksellers. And that's just, for me, I just decided, at this age of 49 years old, accomplished whatever I've accomplished in life, I'm done. Like, I don't need to go to China again. I loved my time in China, but I'm not going to go again. I'm not going to go to Hong Kong. I don't feel safe going to these places. And I don't feel safe supporting, the torture of individuals, just like I wouldn't feel comfortable going to North Korea or Saudi Arabia and other places. I don't want to take money from those folks for my venture funds. I just feel like we've crossed a certain Rubicon or chasm, whatever metaphor you want to use, where it's clear that enabling TikTok, Luckin Coffee, this regime in China is going to result in more pain and suffering for the human race.
What's your take on Silicon Valley in general, how it's handling COVID and this new Black Lives Matter scenario, the post-COVID situation?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons people are very tuned into the technology industry in Silicon Valley with regards to mistakes that have been made here or places where we disappoint people is because the expectation is pretty high. We expect the technology industry to be perhaps different than the movie industry, entertainment industry, or Wall Street. We kind of expect people here to be of a higher moral and ethical character. So when they're not, it's like super disappointing for people. And I think they rightfully come in and they hit us hard, and they should. And it's actually a compliment that people expect venture capitalists, investors, entrepreneurs to have a higher moral code than movie producers and Goldman Sachs and people on Wall Street. And so when you look at diversity and where investment dollars go, as an industry, we're publishing the statistics. We have been for years, and we're trying to change the ratios, and we're working on it really hard. And nobody is satisfied with where it is, and everybody's making additional effort. And no matter what effort you take, until things feel equal and fair, it's not enough. And I don't think people should let up expecting more of us. I think they should keep the pressure on. And I think people in our industry are super attuned to it. And, frankly, the people who haven't made the changes they need to make are terrified. And so what I see in the inside is, and I can tell you, that is the number one conversation. Hey, if we had another partner, it cannot be another white man. Like, if there are venture firms, and I heard this, you and I heard this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, man, we're going to add another partner. It cannot be somebody who looks like the 6 of us or 5 of us. And now, these funds last, typically they're a 10-year fund, and they raise a new one every 4 years. So basically every 3 or 4 years, you have this chance to rebalance the composure of a venture firm. And you're seeing it happen pretty rapidly out here based on that cadence. But that cadence people don't understand. So they're just like, well, why don't you just hire 5 people today and just make it 50-50? It's like, well, it's a partnership and there's a legal document, and I would have to remove people from the partnership to add people to the partnership. And you can't just do that. You get sued. So in the venture world, we're seeing that change, and we're seeing people start their own funds, right? And the industry actually doesn't get enough credit for the fact that it over indexes in some underrepresented groups. So Asians and Indians are overrepresented. And now, just to have a real confounding talk, I've had people say to me, you can't count anybody who's Indian or Asian in your diversity stats. And I said, well, why is that? And they're like, well, because they've already won and they're over indexing and they beat everybody. I said, well, that seems kind of unfair, but okay. And that's what I mean by, like, the bar keeps getting raised for us. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that people expect us to do better. I look at my own statistics. I look at, you remember when we were doing the conferences together, like Launch Festival, we would give away 1,000 free tickets, and we would say maybe 10% female, maybe 5% or less African-American founders, Latino founders. And I think maybe 10 years ago, we had a hard time even giving away free tickets. And I thought to myself, we're giving away free tickets. What more can we do? And it actually turned out there was a little more we could do. We started emailing the 10% of women who were coming to the conferences and saying, hey, do you know any other female founders who would want to come for free and give them an extra ticket? And all of a sudden they say, yeah, I know 3. And then one of them would accept the ticket. Now we're at 20%. Then we asked those 10, and you get the viral coefficient going in a good way. And we started hitting 35% female at some of these events, 40% female. People would come to the event and they goes, what? How did you do it? It's like, we send people an email and ask them. Then we started Founder University, and Jackie Deegan and I, who's the producer of the podcast and now managing director at our fund and runs the accelerator, we did Founder University for women, just a dedicated event, and then we do Founder University for underrepresented founders. That's the way we say it, underrepresented founders. So you self-select into that. So we've had people who are trans, we've had white women, we've had gay men say they feel underrepresented. We've had then people complain that person's not underrepresented. There's a whole debate who's, in the victim Olympics, who's, most worthy of that seat. And we just said, you know what, we don't want to be the arbiters of that. If you consider yourself underrepresented, that's enough for us. And it actually worked out pretty well, because we started to see more founders who were African-American and Latin. And what I said, why didn't you come to the other events? Why did you come to this one? And the universal response was, when we saw you do something just for African Americans and underrepresented founders, we saw you do something just for women, we knew you were serious about diversity and we felt welcome. So we came. But we didn't necessarily feel welcome at those other things. And that was a profound unlock for me, just like emailing women and saying, do you know any other women who might want to come to a tech conference? And that worked really well. This one actually worked really well. And so we've seen more founders apply to our accelerator because we did dedicated things. And I think that's the big lesson, is you have to do more than you think. And there's always a little more you can do. And you got to just keep iterating with good intent, and you're going to get you're going to get attacked. It's not enough. But, as somebody who, has some amount of privilege as a white male, obviously things go a lot easier for me. If I get attacked a little bit because we're not doing enough, I just sort of, I take that as like table stakes, and we just focus more on solving the problem. So just put your head down and do something. I get a lot of people complaining to me, and then I ask them what they're doing. Turns out they're not doing anything but complaining on Twitter. And so I encourage people to stop complaining on Twitter and start actually doing stuff in the world. Like Founder University is actually something we did, and we've done 14 or 15 of these now, and more than half of them are for people who feel underrepresented in the industry, and it has made a profound change to the metrics and statistics of who we invest in.
Thanks for that. Give, if you could, your sense from your perspective, what's going on when you, the California, the Valley, the American perspective of Europe right now in terms of tech. I know you've come over to Sweden, and you and I went to Denmark once or twice.
Yeah.
And so you've got a taste, but I wonder what is the feeling in the air, because it still feels to me like it's not quite understood for what it is, and it seems like I don't want to give away the punchline, but it seems like with America being in the situation that it's currently in, and with China and America squaring off the way that they are, that this could be Europe's moment to shine a bit.
Yeah, I mean, wow, where to start? So I think the general perception of Europe by American venture capitalists and investors, since that was your specific question, I think the American tech industry looks at Europe as an important market to have your products or services, a bit of a headache due to regulations. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not, to focus on. And I think they generally look at it as not like a priority in terms of investing, because there are other opportunities. So investors have, tens of thousands of legitimate companies that they can invest their dollars in on a global basis. And they're going to go with the ones where they can have the most impact, the highest return. They just wouldn't perceive Europe as that traditionally. They would perceive the United States, China, India as those places where you're going to get the most alpha, the most return on your dollar. And so I think that's how they previously looked at it. Then obviously, stuff going down in the Nordics, whether it's Spotify or Clash of Clans, I guess King, or a bunch of these companies becoming unicorns, kind of opened people's eyes up. They started making investments there. They see the opportunity. People have been talking about Berlin, but I don't see a lot of companies coming out of there that are getting people's attention. And so then on a social basis, I think we're enamored with it. So young people are enamored with the idea that we're going to get America to Denmark. Like we talk about this getting to Denmark kind of concept that people in, the sort of the globalists talk about getting to Denmark. In other words, the representation of the people in government represent pretty close to perfectly what the actual citizens want. And people here want free healthcare. People here want a higher minimum wage. People here want longer vacations. People here want free college. And so can you do that in the United States? We're not a homogeneous population. We're kind of like, we're 50 states, literally. And of those 50 states, they probably group into, 4 or 5 very distinct regions that have different views of the world. So it'd be like trying to get 4 or 5 European countries, getting Greece and Denmark and Spain, and England and France to all think the same might not be the easiest task. So that's how you have to look at it. But, definitely this democratic socialist kind of bent is a real thing in the United States. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I feel like
they keep bringing it up.
It's still going to take another 10 years before America realizes kind of how good Scandinavia has it. And they're being very quiet about it, and being Scandinavian, not very boastful about it. I think the best thing that could happen is if you get Americans coming over for a weekend and seeing how things could be in a way. How do you think?
When we have the government try to solve problems, it never works. And so if you look at some of the most acute problems we have here, education, okay, unions and the government. Policing, okay, it's the government and unions, right? And when people look at the problems, when they say reforming education, reforming law enforcement, they immediately point to the unions protecting bad teachers and bad cops to a level that is like almost comical. Like if it wasn't so tragic, it would be comic that somebody could be this bad and still keep their job. And they have to go jump through so many hoops to fire somebody for being so incompetent. And that doesn't mean the majority aren't great. They are, but those things are pretty horrific. And then you look at things like real estate, the other big problem here, housing. It's just highly regulated by the government. And so
it's such an interesting.
America's a pretty
That's such an interesting point as it relates to Sweden, because Sweden is so strong on unions. It's actually kind of one of the fundamentals of how it works. But you're right. It's like in America, government screws everything up that it touches, and in general, Sweden has quite a highly functioning government. There's very little actual corruption and very little actual real toxic stupidity. And maybe a part of it, honestly, I think is their multi-party thing where they've got like, I don't know, 12 parties or whatever it is, where the American...
that would help.
Yeah, the two-party thing, I think, might be really part of the problem.
The two-party system is broken, and then the idea that you would have consensus amongst a country of 330 or 40 million people spread across 50 different states, which would really be 5, 6, 7 actual countries. They just, people don't think the same here. People in Texas are very different than people in New York. People in Florida are very different than people in California or Seattle or Montana. These are very different groups of people. And so the strength of the United States is when we had a consensus that we were a free capitalist society where people were independent of the government and there were small government. That's when America shined. And when we had that pioneering spirit, it kind of worked because we were very tolerant of each other. And a Republican and a Democrat could debate over dinner and be best friends. And you could have 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats playing golf together, or have a poker group half and half, or whatever it was, and you'd be just fine. And now we're at each other's throats, and it's devolved. And now you see like the limitations of our system. And so the system either has to evolve or the union has to be broken up into pieces. I mean, everything's pretty much on the table right now here because what we have happening is not working. And it's so broken, you get somebody like Trump is actually looked at as a solution. I mean, that's how desperate it is here in America, is that we actually, some large number of people actually thought Trump would have been a good solution to burn it all down and break the two-party system. And most people thought, yeah, if we put him in there and he creates chaos, it'll break the two-party system. Well, congratulations, here we are.
And here we are, right?
Complete, utter chaos.
So here's a question.
Yeah, mission accomplished. It's complete chaos.
Yeah. Here is, whoa, what the heck there? Somebody threw in a question from the audience here. Jen, can you work online?
Sure.
Oh, this is really weird how this bubble looks. Jen L, can you work online somehow? I mean, work digitally. And she's touching on an interesting question, which is the whole work from home issue. How do you see this playing out, Jason?
Yeah, so I was not a proponent of work from home for one company, Launch, that I operate and run, because we have to meet with founders face to face, and no founder would ever come to an accelerator if it wasn't in person. Like, why would I do that to be on Zoom? Just like people were like, why would I go to college if I was doing it on Zoom? That makes no sense. And when the pandemic hit, we moved the accelerator after 3 weeks in person to virtual. And it arguably got better at certain things, demonstrably better. So running our accelerator, we were able to run 50% more sessions because people didn't have to travel to the session. So the amount of time to travel to a session is essentially more than the session itself. So we just did 2. The number of venture capitalists who showed up for each session doubled or went up 50%. So that was great. And then we did 2 demo days and we had 200 investors show up for each. So we just had this great experience moving to virtual. And I think when everybody moves to virtual, then things will work really well. So you have your beautiful camera setup, great lighting. I have great lighting here. I have I'm plugged into Ethernet. I've got a studio microphone, studio headset. And so the fidelity here is perfect, and people are starting to learn how to do that. And if everybody buys into it, I think it's going to last. I think hybrid is going to become the new normal. I don't think remote is going to be the new normal. I think hybrid will be the new normal. And I think it will actually lead us out of the recession. I think we were forced to figure out how to work remote. And I have a theory that this actually takes us out of the recession and creates a massive opportunity. And I can walk you through it if you want, but I think this actually is going to become the way we get out of this recession depression.
A little bit of rapid fire on a different word. What's your reaction on VR? And I don't know, did you see the slide I showed about AR, about how they can plug now into via your USB-C cable into your 5G enabled phone, so you could walk around. You know, you don't need a supercomputer anymore now that you got a
Yeah,
5G speed, and you just plug this thing in.
it really is going to depend on if we feel we didn't get enough out of this. So what people forget is no matter how magnificent a new piece of technology is, it has to be so much better than what you're currently using that people are willing to switch. So are we willing to put a headset on, set it up, spend $200 on that headset or $500, deal with the upgrades, et cetera? And so when it came to the iPhone or mobile smartphones, remember there was a group of people who were using Palm Pilots and doing Palm Script, and they were like this wacky 5% of people at a party, and then everybody else was giving out business cards. And then you saw some people with like a Nokia N95 streaming video, and you're like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I want one of those, but it seems too expensive. And but then everybody's like, yeah, BlackBerry is pretty reasonable. And then over the course of literally 20 years, 2 decades, the smartphone became something that everybody's willing to have. And I think VR is in year 2 of that 20-year journey. And so I don't think it's happening tomorrow. There is a possibility that Apple comes out with a transcendent AR product that, you know, hey, we were to put it on right now and it worked so well over 5G, like you're saying, that everybody who's on this would be like in their kitchen working, making breakfast, feeding their kids on the treadmill. But the AR was so perfect that you didn't know they were on a treadmill, or the VR was so perfect that you didn't know they were on a treadmill or feeding their kids. They would all be wearing suits and amazing outfits like some William Gibson Idoru novel or something. So I think it's more like 10 years out. We've had so many false starts with it, but the technology is very good. I mean, I've put on the Oculus headsets and been pretty impressed with it. Apple is the wild card. If Apple has I gotta think Apple has made some progress on the AR glasses because you see their AR kit and how much they're investing in AR. And they haven't really released any interesting products. Like the Mac Pro is garbage. It's like $10,000 for a computer that you can buy from Windows for $2,500. It makes no sense. The laptops are going to shit. The watch is kind of a joke. And the iPhone is kind of no different, like version 9, 10, 11, 12 are no different. So I think Apple might be betting the farm, and they're not making any acquisitions. I think Apple's betting the farm on these AR glasses, and that they might have something really interesting up their sleeves.
Yeah, they have a history of kind of doing what no one else was able to do because of their stack. You know, having the
Yeah, and also waiting. You know, like they're very patient. You know, Google Glass came out 10 years ago. You know, Microsoft with their AR kits and their AR glasses. You know, they I think Apple likes to wait until it's perfected. And you always know the story of Steve Jobs when he's like, yeah, the iPad, it's not ready yet. It's not good enough. Let's just make a small version of this and call it an iPhone. And they were like, okay, boss. And, you know, whatever, 3 or 4 years later, he came out with the iPad. So I think they're just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to really have the high fidelity.
Yeah, the timing. It'd be interesting to see if they can nail that timing product without Jobs there, because it seemed like he always had a hand in that, getting it just right.
I mean, the most interesting product they made since Jobs passed away, AirPods.
No doubt. But they nailed that,
amazing.
though. Yeah,
I've bought 4 or 5 pairs. They nailed it. It's perfect.
That is, and by the way, it's not so far off from AR for your damn ears. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, the watch and this combined, like they really tried to get there with the watch. I just think the screen and Siri is so bad. If Siri was like Alexa, I think if they had actually built Siri and continued to invest in it to actually work as well as Alexa, I think they would be there now, because you could leave your home with just these and your watch and say, hey, Siri, call me an Uber. And it would say, would you like an X or a black? And you'd say, I'll take an X. I'm on a budget. And it'd say, it's going to be here in 2 minutes, you know, at 225, you know, Main Street. Go ahead. Boom. And so, but nobody feels comfortable doing that because Siri is so terrible. So that's like, they have to execute a little better on the software side. But yeah, this is pretty close. It's
What's
pretty
your
darn
take
close.
on
And
Bitcoin now? Because I know historically you've been quite
yeah,
against, but now Chamath seems to have some good arguments for it. And now that you're spending time debating on the
yeah.
podcast with it, and it seems like given
So
the climate that we're in, that I'm like you. I think you and I are very similar on our perspectives on this. But for the first time ever, now with the government printing so much money, maybe there is an argument for some kind of virtual currency or whatnot. What's your take?
yeah, okay. So cryptocurrency as a category, I felt was super fascinating in the beginning when it was a bunch of hackers, and we had those folks, remember, on the podcast early on when Bitcoin was trading at $1 and or 50 cents, and you and I didn't buy any, or we may have bought some, and then I think I bought like 20 and the server got hacked and I lost them. But I still have some Bitcoin actually that was bought at like maybe $2,000 or $3,000. So I've made a large amount of money off of those Bitcoins. And actually, it was my wife who bought them because her brother was in her ear, my brother-in-law. And cryptocurrency as a category, though, when I saw all the ICOs, I was like, this is a giant scam. I know a scam when I see it. A bunch of unqualified grifters who I've seen before in the technology industry grifting again, trying to get you to give them money for a worthless security anonymously in a currency, and they can do whatever they want. They can increase the number of shares in the company, i.e., the cryptocurrency. And I was like, this is going to end in a disaster, and it did. Now, the original product of Bitcoin is very unique in that it hasn't been hacked. That in and of itself is very unique because there's so much at stake. Anything with that much at stake, the hacking would produce an incredible return, right? So spending a year hacking Bitcoin, if you succeeded, or 5 years, you get this incredible prize. You probably could make hundreds or millions of dollars or billions of dollars. And that's why so much time has been spent hacking and spoofing people's, you know, desktops and their phones to get to their Bitcoin wallets. But the currency itself, the protocol itself, has not been hacked, which is really fascinating. It means it's really well architected. So that to me, I was saying a couple of years ago, I just can't believe that the 51% attack or other attacks haven't occurred. A country like a sovereign country hasn't taken over, but it has been manipulated massively. Everybody knows that. That's been proven statistically, all these studies. So it's been manipulated like crazy. And it actually like kind of locked into a $5,000 to $10,000 value for a number of years now, which also is fascinating that it's kind of, they're not printing any more of it, right? Like the number of Bitcoins is fixed. So the fact that it's not growing or plummeting, I think the existential risk for it is somebody comes out with a currency like Bitcoin that does something that actually has some use case besides money store and transfer of money, and actually works really well for money store. Probably doesn't work great for transfer, but somebody comes out with something better, and then people are just like, you know what, Bitcoin is okay, but I'm just going to move 50% of my Bitcoin to this thing because it's so much better, or 25%, and then that would be the slow end to Bitcoin, and that's basically what's happened to every other technology in the industry. So but Bitcoin, so yeah, my belief is Bitcoin eventually goes to zero or some de minimis amount. That's my belief. I still think that's the majority case, greater than 50% chance. It just gets replaced by another technology. And if it does get replaced by another technology that's better, then the price would in fact plummet. So I think you can trade it. I think you can put 1% of your net worth into it, but I'm not like super long Bitcoin or any of those cryptocurrencies because I think something better will come out.
So here's a, because you have
eventually.
some actually in the valley, some very smart people on, it's almost like Democrats and Republicans, like very pro, very against. And you have Jack Dorsey, very pro, and he's incorporated it into the Cash App and his apps. And I don't think it's impossible to think that Amazon could accept Bitcoin. And if they did, you could then buy pretty much the main issue, I think right now, the reason it doesn't have mass adoption is because you still can't buy whatever the hell you want with Bitcoin. It's still not obvious and ubiquitous where you can spend it. But if Amazon accepted it, then you could buy pretty much damn near anything you can imagine with Bitcoin. And here's the funny thing. If Amazon were to accept Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin would go up double in 10 minutes, 3x, 4x, 5x. And you could have the biggest insider trading of all time. Bezos could double his 5x his. He's currently at 200 billion with him and his ex-wife, combined. you could do maybe
Yeah, it could
you
10x.
could
Yeah.
10x that and be the first trillionaire overnight.
The more likely scenario is what Facebook is trying to do with Libra. And I think Amazon, I had Alexis Ohanian on to talk on the podcast last week. And I was saying, listen, I know what you're doing with the Reddit wallet. They put a crypto wallet into the Reddit app. I was like, I know exactly what you're doing. You're doing what I was going to do when I paid the top Redditors and Dig people to work on Netscape. I paid the top ones to be professional curators. I just paid them $1,000 a month. I said, do what you're doing on Dig or Reddit. Just do it on Netscape.
Oh my God!
Publish,
People,
submit three or four.
I know you about as well as anybody does, and even I forgot about that. Can we bounce? Can we talk about this for 1 second? After you created the blogging network that then was sold to AOL, the AOL
gave me Netscape.
I'm sorry, but they owned Netscape, right?
They owned Netscape,
and then they gave that to you to be like, what should we do with this?
Yes.
And you said, and at the time, Dig was very hot. Reddit was not.
Yes.
And but Dig was completely organic, kind of Wikipedia collaboration, crowdsourcing. Yep. And you had the idea, what about paying people, to make the best content?
To be curating.
And which I think was a little ahead of its time even, I think. And it was funny to see how Reddit came and surpassed Dig, years later, which...
Well, they didn't quit. Yeah. It's one of the things about not quitting leads to great outcomes. Like, so Dig just tried to be Facebook and they quit.
But
so what Reddit's going to do is Reddit's going to put a cryptocurrency of their own, my prediction, because they already had Reddit Gold. They did an experiment with virtual currency, a sort of precursor to cryptocurrency. They're going to create a Reddit cryptocurrency, guaranteed. They're going to put it into the wallets and you're going to be able to buy it or earn it for getting votes up. They maybe will give everybody who downloads Reddit 100 of these Reddit coins. And then if you run a subreddit, you can say to be a member of the subreddit, you have to pay 1 coin a month to join it. So like Patreon, subreddits will become Patreons. And the people who have been working on these subreddits for years, not getting paid, will become like YouTubers. And so the person running a subreddit on, web development or a subreddit on 80s TV shows, whatever it is going to be able to make $50,000 a year in coins, and it'll be their full-time job. And all these new jobs will be created. Like there'll be 10,000 people making a full-time living managing the subreddits of Reddit.
Okay.
That's my thesis.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, but I still a lot of ground I want to cover. So can we do rapid fire real fast? What keeps you up at night?
You keep saying rapid fire and I give you 10 minutes.
What keeps you up at night?
Keeps me up at night. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Trump getting a second term would be absolutely disastrous for America. That, I think, is, the biggest existential threat we have. And that should be obvious to everybody. The other thing that keeps me up at night is that there's a generation coming up in America that believes that socialism is better than the capitalism plus democracy stack. And they are so anti-capitalist that I think they're going to give capitalism away. They'll throw capitalism away. And then places, authoritarian locations like China, will become the leading, not only countries in terms of population, but it would be disastrous if the largest companies in the world were owned by an authoritarian regime or, in an authoritarian country. So, TikTok's the first example, I guess. And Zoom had some of their servers in, and some of their developers in China. They quickly, I called them out on it and they got really upset, the Zoom team. I got a bunch of back channels about how upset they were with me. And I said, listen, don't be upset with me, be upset with yourself, and fix this bullshit and don't run American phone calls through China. Duh. And don't have people coding your product in China. Duh. Like the Chinese Communist Party is going to put those people in a gulag until they give them access to whatever they want. The fact that we allow TikTok in America is bonkers. It shouldn't be allowed in the American App Store. If we can't have Twitter and Facebook in China, why is a Chinese company allowed to have TikTok here? We should literally kick it out of the American App Store right now. And no parent should allow their kids to have TikTok on their phone because the Chinese government has access to all that data 100%. Trust me, if they will put somebody in jail for selling a book, you think they have a problem going to the CEO of TikTok or some sysadmin and saying, "Give us the keys to the kingdom." They have no problem doing that, and those individuals have no problem giving them the keys to the kingdom because they want to be number one. So that's, I think, the number of people living in authoritarian countries is the thing that keeps me up at night, and the
What's your
fact that
take
we
on
are
the
now,
Twitter,
yeah,
Facebook,
yeah.
Snapchat, the platforms, and how they're dealing with Trump and the issue of policing everything as we
Yeah, it's an extraordinary situation. If when we were in college and we were in high school, we were taught, Gen Xers and older, to that freedom of speech. It was uncomfortable to defend freedom of speech, but it was a core way to keep a democracy functioning. So if the Ku Klux Klan wants to march down Main Street in your town, you want to protect their right to do that so that the government does not become authoritarian. And as much as you hate it, people are allowed to say whatever stupid stuff they want. Now we have a generation who says, it makes me feel unsafe. You can't say it. And I understand and appreciate that people are hurt by words. That is absolutely the case. If you told me, like, right now that you hated me, Tyler, crush my soul. Uh, so, I understand people are hurt by words. That is true. But there's a bigger picture here. And so I do believe in freedom of speech. That being said, I also believe that we were told this crazy case. Like, what if somebody in a theater says fire and everybody goes running out and kills everybody and crushes people? That's where your free speech ends. Like, you can't hurt other people with your free speech. They never came up with one. What if a maniac, narcissist, insane reality TV star became president and then started spreading conspiracy theories on a global platform with 100 million followers? Like, nobody ever came up with that edge case. And here we are with that edge case. And that edge case, I think the way Twitter is handling it, to say, we're just going to put a disclaimer on the top of this, or you can click through to it and it says, by the way, this might you might want to check on this one because it might not be exactly factually correct. Just like a newscaster might say, we're going to cut to a scene right now. If you are concerned with violence, this is pretty graphic. They're just saying, listen, this is a proven lie. We're going to cut to it now, but just so you know, we've talked to 17 scientists. Global warming is a real thing, but here's the president about to say it's not. Boom. Like, I think that's a pretty mature way to handle it. They're not censoring him. They're just putting it in context. And I think that's fine. But now Zuckerberg is a horrible human being who, should not be put in charge of billions of people. But that's separate and independent from the free speech issue. But he's very clearly in Team Trump. Just so we're clear, he wants Trump in office. He wants to be able to buy the next Instagram. He is Team Trump, 100%. He wouldn't be talking to Trump on the phone if he wasn't. And he, Peter Thiel's got his ear, and he's got a very principled stand about freedom of speech, which is not too far off from mine. Back to like Republicans and Democrats, like I think we all believe in freedom of speech. We just don't want the commander in chief lying and tweeting conspiracy theories and telling people not to wear a mask when it's obvious that a mask helps everybody. So it's just this weird edge case we're in the middle of, and it's a mess.
I know a lot of people, even at the company, there's huge debates going on, and people are resigning and whatnot. And there might be some regret there down the road. What, if any, would you say is your biggest regret now that you're
Wow.
have a history of many things that have worked and whatever? Biggest
Yeah.
regret or biggest mistake, either one.
Well, I mean, not investing in Zynga, Twitter, and Tesla when some of my best friends were starting those companies.
Yeah,
And I
can
wasn't an
vouch for
angel
that,
investor,
yeah.
but I was, yeah, and I was counseling them on, like, hey, you should talk to this VC, or here's what I think of Fred Wilson versus Sequoia, or this company, or that, this firm. And I quickly corrected that. But to be honest, I really don't have regrets because I've performed so much further than I even anticipated for myself. So it would be a little bit ridiculous for me to be like, I should have more. I should have done better. Like, I won 7, 8, 9, 10 times over. I'm really content with where I'm at.
Okay, so flip side, what are you most proud of?
Yeah. Most proud of? Well, the alumni from the companies I've created, and the companies I've built, and the companies I've invested in. man, that's a pretty good alumni group, yourself included. And it's really great to see so many people who I just picked out of obscurity in some cases, from a, commenter on my blog to
Let's
a,
unpack this for a
you
second,
know,
because you have
yeah.
one of the best track records, um, and I've never heard you really speak of it or analyze it. Like, what is it you? And it must be related also to the angel investing you do. My guess is that you're going to answer this by saying it. You can sense the fire that the person has, or something like that.
Um, I think, if you have hustle and you want to um, move up in the world quickly and you're aspirational, I had that same DNA. And game respects game, game identifies game, however you want to say it. I can tell when somebody wants to really be exceptional in their life, and then I just hire them as quick as possible, even if I don't have a position for them. I'm like, this person is going places, and they want to really quickly, um, increase their skill set and be more successful. So it's just obvious. For some reason, I think it happens to be my superpower, is that when talking to a person, I can tell if they're going to win or not. It's like, imagine like a bunch of meaningless superpowers you could have. Like if your superpower was like, I know when it's going to rain. It's like, I know the exact time when it's going to rain. It's like, how do you put that to use? It's like, well, there are some pretty good uses for that. Um, you could actually know some things that other people wouldn't. Uh, and in this case, knowing who really wants to win versus who maybe, winning isn't as important to, they want to just have a great life. I think it's a superpower that angel investing or building companies, it can be a big superpower, that when you just get that sense that this person's good at what they do.
Well, kind of on that point, I have to publicly thank you tremendously.
Oh,
Crossing paths with you is one of the two best things that ever happened to me in my life.
oh,
And
wow.
I know
You
I'm,
got me right there, Tyler.
yeah. Um, and I
It's
know
likewise. It's
there's a
likewise.
lot of people who, I've had that similar conversation with. Um, and yeah, you have kickstarted a lot of careers, and rarely, if ever, mention it. I mean, you often have uh, a thing of mentioning the the blogs that you started, whatever, but you rarely mention the people that you've been had a very strong hand
Yeah,
in shaping.
I specifically don't do that because I would like that. I don't want to cast some shadow or take credit for their success. All I did was happen to look at 100 people and say, those three. And then just say, hey, do you want to come work with me and help me achieve what I need to want to achieve in my life? And two of them say yes. And I don't want to take credit going forward for it. So for somebody like Peter Rojas or Rafat Ali, who's doing, Skiff Now or you, I don't want people to think like I get credit for your effort and work. All I get credit for is maybe accelerating it 1 year, right? Like that's actually legitimately what I would give myself credit for. You would have been a rocket ship. I just got you to the launch pad. I was like, here's the launch pad and here's the codes. Like that's it. Like just believing in somebody. And I have it happen. It's the great joy of my life is I'll be walking down the street or, at a conference or just get a random DM and somebody says, you don't remember this. I came to Launch Festival. I came to TechCrunch 50. I came to this thing. I came to Open Angel Forum. It changed my life forever. And this is how. And the stories just stack up now. I'm in year 10 of angel investing, year 11 of angel investing. And, whatever it is, year 30 of my career. I started my career when I was 19 or 20 years old. And people are just, it happens every day 5 times. And I'm like, wow, the more good you put out into the world, the more you support people and tell them, hey, you can do this. I just look at every conversation and just think, what if everybody told them they couldn't do it? And I'm the one who told them, I think you can do it. Then you become that person who unlocked it for them. Right. And the truth is, we're in this weird situation where everybody thinks people are helpless. Everybody seems to think that nobody can rise above all the challenges in the world. And when I say, I believe, I'll tweet once in a while just to see the reactions. I believe you can do it. I believe anybody is capable of, achieving their dreams. And the amount of venom that comes in those cries. What about this? What about systematic racism? What about, gender differences? What about geographic distances? What about, what your parents did? What about pay inequality? Who gets into what schools? People buying themselves off to get into Yale or Harvard. Their parents pay $250,000. It's like, those things are all true. I agree. And yet, I still believe people can rise above those things because I see it every day of my life. That doesn't mean all those other things don't exist. I'm only making one statement. People can beat the odds. That's it.
Someone, Emery,
People
in the
can beat the
questions.
odds.
Last question, because we're about to kick off the remote demo day, which, by the way, is you have a very rich history of coming up with really brilliant ideas that help the underdog. And remote demo day is your most recent example of that, which we're about to.
And this is the first one,
right?
And you did it, so here we are again.
Well,
just like Open Angel Forum back in the day,
right? But there's a person asking questions on the live chat. How do you?
Sure.
So as we're letting the demo day people spill into the Zoom here, hopefully they'll be quiet as you answer this question as I let them in the door. But the question is, how do you think media will evolve in the next few years? Because it's in a really interesting, seems like transitionary stage at the moment. It's a very tumultuous situation.
I think advertising is going to the big winners like Facebook, Google, etc. Those two are going to be still the bulk of it. There'll still be unique things that appear in the world that people love, like newsletters or podcasts, right? So there can be unique things that actually work in the world. But generally speaking, media is going to be one of the most challenged spaces. And I think getting consumers to pay is the number one trend that I'm following. Is, can you get consumers to pay?
Is going to be one of the most challenging spaces. And I think getting...
There we go. Everybody mute yourself, by the way.
Trend that I'm
so
following.
You don't get feedback. And wear a headset if you don't have one. Perfect. There we go. All right. We're good, Tyler? Thanks for the great questions, Tyler. Always good to talk to you. Just don't go into the media business as a founder. It's just too hard. I keep doing it. It's too hard. It's too challenged. If you're going to do it, you have to keep it very small and lightweight. Do not have big expectations that you're going to build $1 billion company. And I think you're going to have to get consumers to pay in the future, and they're going to pay. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And we're seeing it over and over again in categories like meditation with Calm, dance with Steezy, fitness with Fitbod. We're seeing over and over again consumers being willing to pay for services that get them an outcome. So I'm encouraging people, and I'm doing this with Inside.com, is what's the outcome of getting our newsletter? And the outcome I'm working on at Inside is you're the smartest person in your next meeting. You're the smartest person when you go to your next meeting. So for business people, if you subscribe to Inside.com/business, when you read it, there's so much good analysis and so much good data in there and so many incredible curated links of things you didn't know before. As the CEO or management team member or even an up and comer, you'll be the smartest person in the next meeting you go to. That's, about current events and business issues and trends. So that's what I'm trying to work on. And it's not easy. It's brutally hard. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I'll be totally honest.
Alrighty.
And the news business is just screwed, by the way, because the news business has now just become fully tribal. What happened was all the news outlets that were trying to, play it straight down the middle and be objective journalism, they couldn't get subscribers because who's going to pay for something straight down the middle? It's like, okay, you're just informing me of the news. And they saw Fox doing really well. They see whatever Ben Shapiro's thing doing very well. I don't know the name of, I know his podcast, but I don't know the name of his actually website. Then you see on the other side, MSNBC is doing really well. And so then you see the New York Times and CNN and other people who might have been in the middle say, you know what, let's pick a side. Well, they're not picking the side of Trump. So they went full MSNBC. And so people are just picking a side. And when you pick a side and you say, hey, we're the anti-Trump publication, whether it's MSNBC, New York Times, or CNN, ratings go up, advertising dollars go up. And the more you lean into that and the less you lean into objective journalism and calling balls and strikes fairly, the better you do. And so that's a very perverse incentive to layer on top of the previous perverse incentive, which is clickbait. So now the New York Times, the CNNs of the world are adopting what Fox did and what Ben Shapiro does on the right, which is I'm just going to speak to my base like Trump. I'm going to just pander to my base like Bernie Sanders. This is not about trying to build a base of objective truth. This is about selling to my base and telling them what they want to hear. And that's dangerous for democracy, but it's a good business decision. And so that's the challenge right now. Is if you just try to go straight down the middle, you don't get any subscribers, you don't get any advertisers, you don't get any clicks.
Yeah.
Which is really bizarre.
Yeah. And then it's a cycle. It feeds on itself. It becomes more and more extreme and pushing to the side. So,
I mean, all you have to do is look at like it used to be New York Times writers on social media, on Twitter, would try to keep their personal beliefs in check and try to write a story and be objective. And then the Gen Xers got old, and the next group coming up, they're just like going buck wild on Twitter. And you can see it, like the fact that a New York Times journalist is like, cancel all white people, and, you know, Trump is Hitler. And like, they used to be admonished for doing that stuff. Now they're being hired based on that stuff. They're being hired because they're provocative, anti-Trump, you know, woke journalists. And on the right, it's the same thing. And it's arguably worse, but I'll just say equally bad, where if you want to say COVID-19 is a hoax and it's not real, and, you know, Hillary's emails and all this other nonsense, you get more traffic, right? Pizzagate, all these other crazy conspiracy theories, like they get more clicks.
And here we
horrible. It's a horrible situation.
Let's hold that thought. I'm going to we're going to jump right into the Nordic Demo Day. Everyone's here now. Before we jump into it, I just have a tiny housekeeping to do here. On my deck, we just have a couple of quick announcements. Let's see here. And next slide. There's Jason. Announcements. Here we go. So Antler, their next cohort starts August 10th, and they're looking for 40 new companies. You'll be hearing from them shortly because they're part of the Remote Demo Day Nordics. And then Prairie, a private platform matching startups and investors run by Pete. It's at prairie.com. Check that out there for all the investors who are watching. And then you've got a hackathon by Indiska coming up, hackathonindiska.confetti.events. You can take screenshots of this and hit back on the video to back it up if you need the URL. And then lastly, Norwin and Sting are getting together to do the Startup Climate Action launch event coming up I think it's on June 11th. And then, again, a huge thank you to our partners for the event and EY for their demonstration earlier. Microsoft, Visa, Esri, Capole, EQT Ventures, who you'll be hearing from shortly, my friend Ted. NASDAQ, Swedish Energy Agency, Vinga, and Nordea. That's the Stockholm Tech Meetup. Thank you, everybody. And it was a real pleasure having you, Jason. And now let's go back to the Zoom room and try and do this. So we have, for the Nordic Demo Day, a really good group of partners for this. Let's see how this looks on my screen here. So if everyone can share their cameras, and hopefully this will all fit on one screen. I don't know if it will because there's a lot of people here. We got EQT Ventures. Ted, are you here? North Zone. Open Ocean, I think, is Nicholas. Antler is here. I see Eric from By Founders. Everybody looking good and smiles. If you can, hi Maxine, and Ida and Eric, and I feel like there's an old American TV show where the teacher looks into this magic ball and sees all the students. The joke doesn't work well in Scandinavia, but
it's great. It's great to see Jason again. Last time we had barbecue at your house, if you remember.
Yeah.
So you were serving some good Kobe beef burgers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, that was Open Angel Forum. Actually, brisket. You're talking about when Eric.
No. This was in San Francisco when you had the launch. Startups. There was this Danish startup that you also had angel invested in, and I came by.
Faves.
Exactly. Yes. Boom.
Yeah, we're global.
Yes.
Yeah, I always prior to the pandemic, I would always have everybody over for a barbecue at my house, a barbecue for 16
Right.
hours before that. A lot of fun.
But you're right, Tyler. There was also a barbecue in LA for the Open Angel Forum.
with Wagyu burgers. That's what I remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is like 10 years ago.
Yes, where you pitched Tiger Tag at the first Open Angel
True.
Forum. That was
Yes, indeed.
okay.
And now it's my turn to listen.
Yes, now
I'm
as
looking forward to-
as an investor. So
Yeah.
how we will do this is the startups are going to pitch. There's 7, which all of the investors helped select. We're going to have them pitch alphabetically, all 7 of them, starting with Brick. And then they're going to pitch for 4 minutes. They're going to share their screen. And at the end of their 4-minute pitch, we will stop. The investors will each ask their questions back to back. The entrepreneur will be writing down the questions from the investors, and then they will have 2 minutes to answer the questions as they see fit.
One thing I would do here, Tyler,
Yep.
since you have so many folks, is I would just have maybe 3 people ask a question. So I would call on folks.
Okay.
This way it goes fast. And then for the folks who are asking the questions, the reason we did this format is sometimes the first person asks a question, the founder gets into a dialogue with the one investor and there's no time for other questions. So what we do is now in our accelerator, each of the investors asks their question and then the founder has to answer them at once. And it makes the proceeding go much quicker. We do 3 minutes instead of 4, but yeah, 4 minutes is fine. And then have each person have maybe 3-4 investors ask a question, concise questions, obviously, not rambling, self-promotional questions, but a tight question that they can answer is the advice I give investors. A nice tight question. And then for the founders, the name of the game is to answer each question so concisely that your credibility goes up. And if you ramble, you only have 2 minutes to answer the questions. So if you ramble on the first one, you're not going to get to the other ones, and then you lose the opportunity to impress the investors. So that's the art here is, and why we created this new format, Tyler.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Just to give the background on it. And it works so well.
All righty. Well, we're about to find out. So, Emil from Brick, are you there? And are you ready for your 4 minutes?
I'm here and I'm ready.
Great. Please share your screen.
Yes, let's do it. Do you have it here?
Yes.
Cool. I'm just gonna try to. Can I? Sorry, I can't. Okay. Cool. Here we go. Hi. My name is Emil, and I'm a phone addict. And probably so are you too. In fact, 9 out of 10 get stressed when their phone battery drops below 20%. That's why I founded Brick, with the mission to put people and not phones in charge. So we created a network of connected stations placed in venues all over Stockholm where we started. Using our app, people can find these stations, simply scan it to rent a power bank that comes with integrated cables, charge on the go, and when you're done, just return in any station you like. It's been called the Voi for phone charging, or Bird or Lime, or whatever your reference is. And we've been loved by both the users and the venues we're at. Because the users, they love us because they don't need to leave their phones with a random bartender. They don't have to be stuck at the power outlet to miss out what's actually happening that they want to do, nor to plan ahead and to charge their own power bank and bring it. It's a modern solution to a modern problem. And venues, they also benefit from having a brick station because it increases customer satisfaction for all the reasons I just mentioned. It drives footfall to the venue. And it's convenient for the staff because they don't have to charge phones for guests and so on. And the best of all, it's completely free for the venues to have a station. And fortunately, we're not first doing this. Just like the shared bikes were, shared power banks is huge in Asia. China alone had last year over 300 million users. And it has been stated as the only profitable sharing economy segment in China. And up until today, we're self-funded with attraction after 5 months of we have 10,000 downloads of our app with zero marketing, meaning that we have built a case around that people actually download the app and use the service when they need it. You can find our stations at 120 plus venues. We have today pilots with both Åhléns and ICA, which is Sweden's largest department chain and the largest grocery shop chain. We have exclusivity agreements with multiple companies, including Starbucks. We have a founding team with solid experience from marketing, tech development, legal, production, and sourcing. And from day one, we have had an investor and a venture studio, Redmind, who's been helping out with building the app and the IP we today own and rely on. So to do some unit economics of power bank sharing, at the top you have a pricing model, which is flexible, but also it's an unlock fee. It's a fee for 30 minutes. We have a maximum charge per day and a maximum if you lose the power bank or keep it. And we have an ambition of having 1 rental per day per station. And our current gross profit per paid rental is $2. That will give us a monthly gross profit of $45 per station and a repayment time of a station for 4 months. And we have grown faster than expected, and we will need additional hardware by the end of the summer. Our plan is thereby to raise a smaller amount, a pre-seed round of $200,000 as soon as possible, to be able to purchase 200 more stations, pay commission to salespeople that acquire venues, and hire a senior CPO. After the summer, we look to raise a seed round of $1 million to continue our expansion. And this leaves us with 2 opportunities to join the journey of Brick. Thank you. That's it.
Well done. Please stop. I'll stop sharing your screen for you. Questions from the investors: EQT, Northzone, Open Ocean, Antler, or by founders? Ted, EQT.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the presentation. Obviously exists in Asia. I've also seen a few other ones in Europe. How will you win?
Hold that thought. Maxine, North.
Thank you. What type of marketing channels do you think you'll be able to leverage the most?
And Nicholas, Open Ocean.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an expert on battery technologies, but isn't this problem kind of diminishing for each iteration of the iPhone? At least my iPhone 11 Pro is keeping its battery pretty well for a full day.
All righty, you got 2 minutes, Emil. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Starting from the last one, maybe, but like, what's interesting with the technology is that we can maybe, of course, the battery is becoming better and better, but you can also see that the phone is becoming more and more of a core part of the everyday life for us. So it's more important that there will be a network or a possibility for people to actually just charge their phones wherever they are. And if we look at like the marketing channels, I think the core for us will be to probably do like what we're doing already, to just be good at being at venues where people actually are, where people actually need our service. But of course, you can see a great possibility to use whatever channels will be relevant going forward, if it is TikTok or whatever it is, to target the core group. But today you can see that the core group using the service is about between 25 and 35 years old. So I think just being at the right place and acquire users when they actually need us, because our best marketing channels currently is bartenders. That's like our influencers. They love us and they promote us. So I think that's like the way to go. And looking at how to win this, I think what we've been doing since day one is to, instead of going for independent small bars, we're trying to build relationships with big chains and big venues to be able to expand with them. Thereby, we have Starbucks, Åhléns, pilot with ICA. We're trying to build these relationships so they can help us with the expansion as well. And as well as what we're doing is building.
All right, Emil, we're short
sales.
on. We have to keep to the time here. So thank you for that. And next up is Marty with Epic Foods. Are you there?
Let me just unmute.
Remember, Tyler, you just got to just yell time.
Time.
Founders will take as much as you give them.
Epic Foods.
They'll go for 10 minutes. They're smart.
Here we go.
But see how fast that went and concise? It was good.
Perfect. My screen should be up now.
Yes, it is.
And let's go. So Marty from Epic Foods, we do plant-based meals cooked in our own cloud kitchens and distributed in retail first, delivery apps second. So plant-based takeaway, a great super solution for food, and retail channel is a way for us to get big fast. Now, for most people, the food is always more important than the channel. It's even superior to the cost and speed of getting your delivery. And what's the most important thing in food is the taste. So regardless of all the other reasons you buy, you only rebuy food because of the taste. And food delivery is often a rebuy use case. So if your Deliveroo editions is competing against the best burritos in town, and you serve the second best burrito, you don't have much demand, unless, of course, the best one is unavailable. So we have developed our own category leader plant-based meals. They are made in our empty kitchens, run with our own people and tech, and scaled in retail channel, but also with Food Around Vault. It's growing 20% month over month without any marketing so far, and supermarket owners are referring to our products as Oatly for ready-made meals because it sells out quickly. It also matches the same values as our early adopters, those who don't just pay to postpone the hunger, but for health and a cause too. Now, it would be quite highly improbable to build a new food brand with pizza or burgers, but it can be done in this category. None of us had a grandmother who used to cook Beyond Meat or Impossible Burgers. The other thing that we need to solve is, have you ever felt craving for carrots or green beans? So we need to understand the psychology of food and mix the flavors. And this retention that we see hasn't really been achieved by 99% of the other startups we've seen in Europe. So our design criteria, that's why it's accidentally vegan, to hide the plants and serve this larger market so we can cross over from big cities to small cities already. Now, the 5-year plan is to be the category leader in plant-based meals. But meanwhile, we are building up the cloud kitchen infrastructure to digitalize not only restaurants, but takeaway food market at large. So far, we've built 4 kitchens and successfully shared a kitchen space with one global scale food operator. We've also done 116 different business model iterations to double down on this strategy. And now, the average order value for our stores customers is 10x the order value of retail customers. Of the B2C customers. So we see future very much omni-channel. Supermarkets are setting up restaurants are setting up pickups. And our retention is about 120% in average store where we launch. Team. My own background is in engineering physics. We sold the company to US, like my brother, who was in a online design company. Stina joined from Cosmopolitan magazine as the ex-CEO, and we know brand and food. Now we are looking for 700Ks to open the next 7 cities. We already have half of that committed. And the big vision is to build the category leading brand in plant-based ready-made meals, and then open the kitchen infrastructure for others to serve the takeaway channels of the future. Thank you.
And 5 minutes ahead of time. Great. Eric from Pi founders have a question?
Yeah, how do you secure quality? As you were talking about the importance of that, how do you, with all these cloud kitchens, make that scalable?
And someone from Antler?
Quality.
No? Then we can go to EQT, North Zone, or Open Ocean. Anyone have a question?
On your vision, what's next? I mean, what markets? What's the end game?
Alrighty, that was Ted from EQT. Maxine or Nicholas? No? You can say.
Nicholas, yeah, go ahead.
I'd want to hear about kind of how you look on pricing if you want to become kind of an everyday staple for families.
Okay.
Got it.
2 minutes.
So we have quality, what's next, and pricing. First, quality. So we have our own ERP and quality standards to check that all foods pass through certain checkpoints. But plant-based foods is actually very much easier than sushi or salmons. You don't need to have the same temperature controls. We have iterated the recipes about 20 times to make it idiot-proof. And then we staff the teams so that there is always someone in charge of the quality. So we haven't got a complaint past our 200,000 meals. So then the next question is, where do we move from here? What's the end game? So now we plan to open the next 7 cities in North Europe, Scandinavia. We are already in pre-sales in Oslo, Stockholm, Copenhagen today. And then we are looking to go to the US with the kitchen partnerships. We have to see whether, if this continues to be as successful as it has been in the stores that mostly are sold out at the moment, then we might even take a manufacturing partners and license some of that. But what we really believe in are excited about is to build the assets up also. We are physicists and entrepreneurs. We like how this way of eating is changing and the infrastructure is changing behind it. And the last part about the pricing, that's simple. So these trendy foods can be priced a bit higher because you are not only selling to postpone hunger, but also health and environment. But the raw material prices are typically lower than meat and salmon. So we have a kind of Tesla pricing strategy: start high and then gradually
sorry to interrupt
lower
you.
it twice.
That's time.
Thanks.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you for that. And next up is GigaPay.
Thank you.
Hello, it's my turn now. Going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Cool. So 10 years ago, jobs like Instagram influencer or Uber driver didn't exist. Gig and marketplace businesses have disrupted the job market, yet the way that we get paid is still outdated. One of the biggest issues that marketplace and gig businesses face when they scale is finding a compliant way to pay gig salaries. That's why we started GigaPay. We're a Swedish-based fintech that takes care of all the taxes, insurances, and pensions on behalf of scaling gig and marketplace businesses. It's super easy to use, and I want to show you how by introducing you to Joe. Now, like more than 89 million people across the EU, Joe works for himself. And then there's Sue, who's a CEO of Scooters. Now, let's assume that Sue hires Joe to do her new web design. Joe does a great job, so Sue pays Joe using GigaPay. By inputting a few details from Joe, she's able to instantly send the amount with all taxes, insurances, and pensions covered, and it goes directly to his bank account. Now, the real magic happens when Sue has scooters up and running, and she has people all around the city using her scooters. But what happens when the scooters start running out of power? Well, she needs to hire some giggers. Now, let's assume that she has an integration with GigaPay. So every single time that a scooter charger or Giga charges a scooter and a job's completed, the amount will be instantly sent to his bank account with all the taxes, insurances, and pensions covered. So there's no manual work that those scooters or the platform business needs to do. So why now? Well, before COVID, the gig economy we've already seen a massive growth and it's set to be worth more than $450 billion by 2023. But we also see now that with COVID-19, that there's been a huge influx of unemployment, with some numbers showing that up to 1.9 billion people globally will be having to look at other forms of employment. So we really see that as an opportunity for the gig economy and also remote work. In addition to that, there is no compliant global player today servicing specifically the gig and marketplace economy. So we really see that as an opportunity for GigaPay. Our business model is that we take up to 5% of the total payout amount. We have a great API. We offer instant payouts, and we also take care of the taxes, insurances, and pensions by acting as an employer on behalf of the gig and marketplace businesses. Since the beginning of the year, we've seen a 64% average month-on-month growth. We have 8 customers today, including 2, which we just onboarded last month, and we have an average fee of 4% across our portfolio. Our team has experience from high-growth companies like iZettle, Bambora, and King, and we've also worked with expansion across other markets, including LATAM, EU, and also Southeast Asia. So we're now looking to raise between 1 to 1.5 million seed in Q3, and that's to fuel our growth across operations, sales, expansion, and tech. So if you want to join us on our journey to make it easier to pay and get paid in the gig economy, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. And 10 seconds to spare. Well done. Questions?
Thank you.
Ted from EQT.
Ted, you're on mute.
Okay, so you integrate into other services, or you offer your service direct to that CEO of that scooter company towards that freelancer as an individual? Question mark.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then Maxine from North Zone.
Hi, Raya. What's your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah.
Okay. Nicholas from Open Ocean.
A bit of a similar question. I mean, what kind of customers would you ideally then target? Companies like this one here in the example, the scooters, or larger kind of marketplaces or large events? I think you mentioned Slush and Web Summit in your deck. Where do you want to go first?
And
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Eric from
Yeah, curious to see if you can, like, given the gig economy, there are many of the Giga workers are involved in multiple activities. Can you use that to bring your service out to more of the platforms that would benefit from this?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the great questions. I'll start off with yours first, Eric. So we're going to be launching, and this kind of goes into the integration question as well. So we're going to be launching our gig or individual offering later this month. And we see that as a great growth tool for us to both discover new businesses for GigaPay and also to add some sort of virality effect to GigaPay as well. Then I'll go to the integration question. So we're targeting primarily B2B, so scaling gig and marketplace businesses. So through our API, then it is ideal for those marketplace businesses to do an integration directly with GigaPay. However, with our new offering that we'll have with the individuals, then we will be able to service that market as well. And then the customer focus question. So yeah, our ideal customers are smaller gig and marketplace businesses that have the potential to scale and who want to expand across multiple markets, because that's also our ambition as well. Of course, companies like Uber wouldn't be a great market fit for us right now because they're they've already sort of gone through that story. And our go-to-market strategy is that we see us partnering with existing players. So if we go to a new market, then a lot of our customers want to expand across the regions. So we partner with them and then we would then onboard other smaller gig and marketplace businesses. And then once we've understood the product market fit, then we will go for the larger players. Yeah, thanks.
Very good, thank you. Already lunch.co, it is now your time. I'll set the clock at 3 minutes. Please share your screen.
I thought it was 4 minutes, Tyler.
Fair enough, 4 minutes.
All right, just 1 second. Let me show this. All right, no, wrong screen. Good start. All right, my name is Alexei. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Lunch.co. And we live in a truly extraordinary times when the new normal is being shaped right before our eyes. And this is our bid to be part of that story. Lunch.co is a peer-to-peer marketplace where colleagues can buy and sell home-cooked food amongst themselves at the workplace. And this, somebody once told me, is a crazy idea. But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. And this somebody this morning made a commitment to invest £250,000 into our upcoming seed round later this month. So what is really behind the argument? Well, workplace lunch is a huge market. 600 billion SEK are spent annually on a workplace lunch in our home markets of Sweden and the UK. That is 3 times the size of the ride-hailing market and twice the size of a hotel market Airbnb is going for. The space was dominated by professional food, outnumbering DIY food, homemade food, 2 to 1. Because of COVID, of social restrictions that are imposed, which obviously, of course, more prominent in the UK than in Sweden, and the looming economic recession, there is actually a void of food previously occupied by professional food. Peer-to-peer food is poised to step into that void, and that thus become the new normal. Time to look at the solution. So we really are catering for buyers and sellers, who are the chefs. Buyers are looking for authentic food at a good price and for great choice and convenience at the workplace. The chefs are looking to exploit newly acquired cooking skills and earn a bit of money to supplement their income. The chefs cook a few extra portions at home, package it nicely, bring it to work, posting it on the app, put it in the communal fridge. Buyers triggered by hunger or curiosity browse through the app, choose something they like, and pick up food from a communal fridge again, leaving a review for the chef and therefore fueling the next cycle. We trialed the solution in WeWork Stockholm since September, selling over 2,000 meals with an average price of 70 SEK, which is 40% discount to professional food. We charge 10% fee and have been revenue generating since day one. How do we bring it to people then? That's a question. And our strategy is to target leaders, passionate cooks or passionate environmentalists who will reach through marketing outreach and referral programs using our partner Coop to reach more people as well. We will nurture early groups and early adopters, and we'll use incentive schemes and various ways of removing friction, such as providing packaging material to our chefs to stimulate and propagate this behavior. Our corporate package makes it easy to use our product for corporates to promote inclusion within a workspace. And a lot of companies have already expressed interest to use our services. Who's behind this? Well, it's a great team. Chris and myself are co-founders of the business. We are food industry veterans. We teamed up with Massimo, who has built Depop fashion platforms from seed to Series C with 15 million users in the community. And there are 2 great Nordic co-founders, Marie-Louise and Philip, who help us grow communities and engage our users. So far, we're backed by Antler and 7 investors at the incubator round, where we raised 2 million SEK. This month, we're raising 10 million SEK round, which is 70% committed. I hope that this is something that you can join us on this journey to become a new normal. Thank you.
Alrighty, well done. Any questions? Ted, EQT.
I got a bit hungry here when you spoke. No, I mean I'm a fan of what you're doing. Obviously, have you rethought anything of the plan because of COVID and the future and remote work and all that?
Okay, hold that thought. Maxine, North Zone.
How will you ensure supply on your platform?
Nicholas, Open Ocean.
That was my question as well. Perhaps to continue on that note, how then to also ensure the quality? Same question that was in the previous food case as well.
Yeah, she seems to know your questions before you do. By founders, Eric.
Yeah, I would agree to Ted. I'm just happy I just had dinner, because like with all these food pitches, I'm happy I'm already stuffed. A quick, like to build actually on, I think Maxine's question is, isn't it in some way or form going to be drowning in its own success, or its success will be limiting, because basically the more you demand, like as a home like cooker and so on, I can't scale it. So there will be like some threshold on that.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Right, so two questions. Obviously, plan for COVID and supply quality, and how do you balance the two? Ted, obviously we've spoken before, and yeah, you're right. We started off as a B2B business, and right now there is nobody there to make those decisions. So we've decided to go for the leaders, for those opinion setters within the workspace, to use them as a doorway into organizations at the grassroots level. And therefore, we'll reach lots of grassroots level right now. And when the organizations come back and they're able to make decisions, we'll reach them. On the supplier side, it's not a typical marketplace where you have one-to-one relationship. A chef is well capable of producing 5 to 7 meals and carrying them in one bag without extra requirements in terms of trying to have a specialist transport or anything like that, just on his usual journey to work. And if you do that 5 times a week, then you outnumber buyers to chef 25 to 1. So we typically in WeWork we've always had plenty of demand, plenty of supply, and that worked quite well. In terms of quality, there is an interesting gap in Europe, and it's not applicable to the US, because the US is far more strictly regulated. In Europe, there are some exemptions for micro producers, so it's legal and easy to produce small quantities of food, and we provide for the training modules for people to become qualified appropriately if they want to produce more than once or twice a week. In terms of getting hungry, well, come back to work, and there's going to be plenty of food available in your office. Or if it's not, please get in touch, and we will establish a group near you somewhere.
So another reason to go to work, to eat food. I like that.
Great. Look, I think we need one.
Alrighty, thank you for that. Okay, and next up, let's see here. I think we've done 4 so far. I think we've got...
It's me, I think.
3.
David from PlayPilot.
Alrighty, PlayPilot, are you ready to share your screen?
I am. I think I'm doing so now. Can you see my screen? Brilliant.
Yes, take it away.
Great. So hi, everyone. Let me introduce you to the PlayPilot opportunity. First, the big problem, and this is a big problem. The streaming services like Netflix and HBO and many, many more are growing fast as streaming is becoming the new norm, as you might know. And having lots to choose from is great from a consumer perspective. It's never been better, but the fragmentation is making it increasingly hard to navigate what's actually available. So when looking for a movie or a show, we actually spend 1.5 years of our lives just digging into trying to find what to watch. And this is depressing news, I think. So the streaming industry is completely broken. But don't worry, PlayPilot is here to help you out. The solution is that we let users search and explore all streaming services in their market in one single place, helping users to quickly find the best titles from Netflix, HBO, Prime, etc., and 30 plus other services. Then we just link you to the service that has the content you're looking for. So beyond the aggregation and cross-service recommendations that we're doing, we're also heavily focused on social, making it easy for consumers to access recommendations from friends, family, film critics, and others. So, these questions when you go and have a dinner with someone on a beer, it's like, have you seen anything great lately? Have you seen any good movies lately? And we make the answer to that question accessible to lots of more people through our platform. So the product, the website and app offers search and explore everything, every piece of content out there in one, legally, I should say. And you can search and explore those across all the streaming services. We let our users know where to stream it. We allow them to watch list, track content, and also get a notification as soon as like a new episode of Game of Thrones is released or something like that. And on top of that, you will be able to know what your friends, family, and even film critics actually like. So the good news is that we've really seen good traction. We think the timing for the service like this is great. So we've been doubling our user volume since just a few months. And while the consumer product that I just introduced you to is all about content discovery, our business is data. So we know what each streaming catalog looks like, how they changes over time. We know importantly, like what the audience is watching. We know this data can help streamers, streaming providers, and telcos, etc., to navigate in this space. So what we have created, what we make money on, is the VOD conversion engine, or like a performance marketing platform that promotes content, subscription packages, rentals, cinema tickets, etc. And we have already signed customers buying these campaigns, such as Disney, Viaplay, and Warner, and 5-6 other companies. But the second thing that we're also going to make money on is Gravity. That's actually launched today, which is an insight tool for the industry, where they can see, and this will give them an overview over the complete industry and how it looks like, and answering questions like how many drama movies is out there in Sweden, for instance. And this is completely hidden today. The team, we're a team of 15 people today, experienced from media, startups, movie production, etc. Our shareholders have so far invested around 3 million euros in PlayPilot. Now we're looking to need the same amount to take this beyond the Nordics to the rest of the world. Thank you.
All righty, well done. Question time, Ted, EQT.
Yeah, so the Holy Grail, obviously, what is my question? Thinking about sort of the Apple TV integration piece. Okay, question is, in the consumption moment on a TV, on Apple TV, Android TV, whatever, would that work?
Sorry, could you explain what you mean with that?
It was very unclear. Maybe it's actually next investor. I'll come back in the end.
All right.
Okay, Maxine, North
No worries.
Zone.
Okay. How big will these huge streaming providers let you become? Like how will they let you share the data with each other and kind of that whole dynamic?
And Nicholas, that was your question as well, right?
My question this time was that for consumers, your plan is to have this always free to sign up, so the revenues are coming from somewhere else. I'm always able to use this one free, correct?
Okay, Eric, by Founders.
I'm curious, like how you actually capture data if you don't have a direct integration between, me clicking and watching and actually seeing how long time I watch and what's happening, versus just that I'm browsing through and actually maybe not really leaving a lot of trace.
Right. So these questions are all fantastic, by the way. So how big can we be? I think there's no limit. The streaming providers are our friends, our best friends. We need to keep them close to our chest. They are more like, view us as a hotels.com. We will generate more revenues, more insights. I'll stop right there because otherwise I will talk too much about that. Then it was about the data and the direct, how we get the data and how that's going to work. Sorry, what was the question again? I just wrote data and direct. Can you help me out?
How you get data if you don't integrate into the actual services?
Right. Sorry, we have API integrations with most of the big streaming providers. So that's how we get the data, but we don't get any data from them in reality. So we don't know when people are, so the simple answer is no. We don't get that data, how long they stream a service, for instance. We just know the data, how they behave on the Play Pilot platform. So we're more like a proxy, the best possible data out there in the industry right now.
Can you create a seamless experience since you relay the user to various services?
With some companies, we can, like Netflix, yes. Yes.
Yes. Why is Tyler laughing?
Oh,
because
I love you.
Ah, now I see. Yeah, it took some Photoshop work. It's hard because it's hard to.
Okay.
I think time's up.
Okay, I think time's up. Alrighty, thank you so much for that. Who's up next? I think it is Stellar. Are you ready?
All right. Yes.
Let me reset the clock, but go ahead and share your screen.
Right, can you see my screen? Right, hi everyone. I'm Martin Carlson. I'm the founder and CEO of Stellar. Stellar is a new kind of fitness app. It uses the camera on your smartphone or tablet to provide real-time feedback on your moves, count your reps, and keep track of your progress. Well, let's start and take a minute to talk about the problem. Many people need help to succeed with their workout routine, and you can essentially break it down into 3 parts. Inspiration to get you going, knowing what to do, planning the workout, doing it, and actually having that great workout. You can get a personal trainer to help you with all 3. However, it's expensive and out of reach for a lot of people. If we look at today's workout apps, they focus on the inspiration and planning part. However, when it comes to the actual workout experience, they're missing the mark. They start before you're ready, have no idea what your user is up to, and essentially they offer the same workout experience that 20 years ago was on a DVD. So let me introduce Stellar. Stellar follows you and your pace instead of you following another app. Counts your repetition, tells you if you're doing it wrong, and gives you a push and encouragement when you're doing it right. But let's not take my word for it. Let me show you instead what it looks like.
Three, 2, 1. Let's go. That's a great squat. Nice work. Keep your knees straight. Try to go a bit lower. Awesome.
All right, when you're having a great workout experience, your body releases those endorphins, and that's what makes you feel stellar. And that's what we're all about. The fitness app market was a $2.7 billion market in 2019 and is expected to grow to $15 billion by 2026. The market growth is essentially driven by strong underlying wellness megatrend and continuing very strong. Our business model is a subscription model where you, after a free trial period, subscribe for $15 per month. In terms of go-to-market, we're signing up local fitness personalities for each market. We're specifically looking for people with large social media followings. The trainers then get a kickback when their workouts are used and then essentially promote their own workouts. We'll of course also pursue paid acquisition, and finally going into B2B partnerships. In terms of partnership, I don't know how many of you are familiar with GymPass. We just signed a deal with them less than 2 weeks ago. GymPass is the world's largest corporate gym membership platform backed by SoftBank and Atomico. As COVID-19 shut down the world's gym, GymPass created a digital GymPass wellness offering, and Cell will be part of this offering, and we expect to go live with them here shortly. In terms of traction, we've done a soft launch in early March, and so far have 7,500 registered users with about 1,600 returning users. Our most active user is Alicia from the UK, who after a 2-week of trial, bought a 1-year subscription and since done 32 workouts over 7 weeks. Since our soft launch, we've done a rebranding, a major product update, and now with the GymPass deal closed, we'll do a full launch in just a couple of days. We put together an awesome team. I would especially like to highlight Carl Johan, who was 1 out of 4 building a unicorn selling microinsurance in Africa, and also Magnus, who's built 70 apps and won a bunch of awards doing it. Rodrigo is a former CEO for Accenture in Chile. I met him at MIT. My background includes microprocessor design in Silicon Valley and in the media sector. We're now in the App Store in 14 European countries. If you're outside of the EU, you can access our test flight version using the QR code on the screen. And that's it. Give it up for Stella.
Alrighty, Ted, questions?
No, well done. I've also followed you for some time, obviously. There are a bunch of things in your app that is unique. You have the thing that sort of follows your journey. You have the body posture thing. What do you think will be the thing that gives you the adoption?
Okay, Maxine, North Zone.
Hey, Martin. How do you work to improve retention?
Open Ocean, Nicholas.
Congrats on the deal with Gympass. What was it that finally then convinced them and made them say yes?
Good question. By founders, Eric.
Yeah, I'm curious around the accuracy. Like I imagine you use some fancy AI and whatnot, but like how accurate is it at the end of the day?
All right.
Alrighty, 2 minutes on the clock. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So what will kick adoption? What we're really seen as what people really enjoy is the fact that they can go into a low cognitive mode when they're working out. They don't have to think what they're doing. They're doing what they're told, and they're just simply keep going. If they're doing something wrong, we'll tell them. They don't have to think about anything as they're working out. The second part we've seen really a lot of interest is into the actual correction, and also from the boosting side. That if you're not going deep enough in a squat, we'll tell you try to go a little bit lower, and then actually give you an encouragement when you do. So I think those two are really the key ones to drive adoption. In terms of retention, a part of that is just building a wider workout library. Continue having more workouts and more plans. And we're recruiting trainers every week now. We're launching one tomorrow, and we have more people coming in to make sure that there's more content for everyone to drive that. We're also building more features where your previous workouts will be taken into account into your next workout, such that we can build a more and more intelligent workout tuned to your personalized experience. Thirdly, Gympass. What made them finally say yes? They reached out to us, so it was a very easy discussion in terms of that. Finally, in terms of accuracy, this is something we've been working on for 2 years. It's definitely a big challenge, and we've now actually come a long way on that, and it's now working much, much better. It's still challenging if you have very difficult lighting environments. If you have strong backlight, or if you're in a really dark room, it could still be a challenge. But if in a decently lit room, it works very well.
Right time. And very well done, by the way. I remember when you pitched at the Tech Meetup, I think it was about 6 months ago or so. And it's good to, or at Tech Fest last year as well, you had a booth there. That's right. Hopefully you'll have a booth there again this year, but in the virtual context in September. But very well done in any case. And so last but not least, let's hear for Anna from Zvuk. Are you there, Anna?
Yes.
Great. Could you please share?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Could you share your
Hope you're
screen?
still all. I am about to share it right now. All right, you guys see it? Perfect. So my name's Anna. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Zvuk. Imagine you are one of these brands and you want to effectively reach out to your target audience. Now, you might know 90 million Americans listen to podcasts every month, so you might decide to advertise with a podcast. Now, the question is, how do you know which podcasts have your exact target group and the reach that you desire? Now, that's a little tricky. See, the problem is only 15% of all podcasts currently monetize, and they are famous podcasts with famous hosts, and chances are you're already aware of them, but they might be expensive, and their target audience may not be exactly a fit with yours. What you're missing out on is the long tail of podcasts that might be a perfect fit for your target audience, and combined might have a listenership of millions of people. But right now, there's no way for this long tail podcast to be discovered by your brand. That's the problem we're solving. Zvook is the first AI platform matching brands with podcasts in an easy, transparent, and data-driven way. Here's how it works. The brand sets the criteria, the budget, the target audience, the content. Our platform scans through podcasts in our database based on metadata, statistics, and audio analysis. And we then recommend smart bundles of podcasts that optimize for the brand's criteria. Once the podcast and brand opt in, they can then go on to chat, confirm everything, make the payment, do follow-ups, all in one platform. And we gather valuable data on those interactions to help us with further recommendations. Simply put, Zvook is to podcasting what Google's PageRank was to internet search. We're a game changer. And how does it all work? Well, it's all powered by our proprietary knowledge graph. And this is a picture of our actual backend. So we analyze the audio of the episodes, we pull up things like sentiment and different topics and build correlations between those topics. So we're able to recommend podcasts that your brand may never have even heard of, that have a perfect fit with the audience and combined reach. We're pretty early in our journey, but we've already achieved a lot. Here's where we stand. We've set up an enterprise feed with Apple Podcasts that allows us to collect the podcast metadata. We've extracted information from there into our knowledge graph. We've tested our audio analysis, and we know that it works. We launched the first version of the platform in March with 3 search filters available. We have set up the basis for user interactions-based recommendation engine, and we have built a first-class UI that we continuously keep getting amazing feedback on. To date, we have 500,000 podcasts in our platform with over 4 million topics extracted into our knowledge graph. We've signed up 30 brands as pilot users. We have 8 paying customers that we've matched with a podcast, and their ads have been listened to over 150,000 times. Next, we're going to add data science into our knowledge graph. We're going to go deeper into audio analysis and create new search filters. Our goal is to soft launch the first version of the recommendation component in August, and then go on building other things like collaboration tools. Now is the right time to build Zvook. Podcast advertising is projected to hit $1 billion next year, but what's more exciting is the pace at which it's growing, which is way faster than any other advertising platform. And we have the right team to do this. Me and my co-founder Malik have a perfect combination of business and tech to make this happen. We have a lot of experience from media, startups, and the tech world. We've raised our initial capital from Antler, and we're currently wrapping up our current round with ByFounders as the lead investor. And we do have room for one more strategic investor. So we welcome you to join our journey.
All right, well done. Questions from Ted?
More wide question. What's your take on Spotify's entry into podcasting and making it sort of less open, and how does that affect you?
I like that question. Maxine from North Zone?
Well, thanks for a really good pitch. I wanted to kind of emphasize that, and congrats to Eric too, obviously. But kind of what kind of data outside of the pure podcast would you analyze? Would you go into social media and look for reactions? Kind of what is the metadata that you're referring to, and what's your view on leveraging that going forward?
Nicholas, Open Ocean?
Great stuff. I'm a huge fan of podcasts myself. Now, I'm not an advertiser and neither a brand manager, but I mean, one of the key questions I'd assume is measurability and understanding the return on investment. Have you at all thought about that one? I mean, how then to ensure that the brand managers actually come back?
Alrighty, and Eric from ByFounders. Although I don't know if it's quite fair for you to ask a question, but go ahead.
No, thanks, Anna. Great stuff indeed. And really thanks, Tyler, for organizing this. I would ask a simple question. Why is it that Jason should come on board as an angel investor in Zvook?
Great question. All right, that's all. Perfect. So I'll address the Spotify question first. So obviously Spotify is now coming into the podcasting world, but actually if you think about the listens, the platforms, how people listen to podcasts, Spotify only counts for 15% of all listens. Apple still dominates that. So we think that Spotify is actually bigger than it is in podcasting. Their primary revenue drivers are still in music and premium subscriptions. So it's going to take them a while to actually, for them to make sense to very heavily invest in things like podcast monetization. In terms of the data, so right now we are heavily focusing on, in addition to the metadata and listenership, to actually go into the audio analysis. So we'll actually be able to say, hey, if somebody's talking about sustainable materials in a fashion podcast, that might be a good fit for an organic food brand, because that actually ties into topics of climate change or conscious consumption, which is not something anybody is doing at the moment. Going forward, obviously, we'll be also able to tap into external sources like social media or even websites. In terms of measurability, I mean, I think that this is a challenge for generally the industry. Like, I mean, it used to be a challenge for radio, and it still remains to be a challenge for audio and podcasting. Right now, the ROI and attribution is done via vanity URLs, promo codes, website visits, and so on. I mean, we're watching that space. That is not the problem that we're solving right now, but I think going forward, we will be really interestingly positioned to also have a say in solving that that attribution problem. Jason, you obviously are, someone who knows about this industry more than anybody. We've listened to your podcast, obviously, and we have heard you mention several times that the monetization bit, in particular, of podcasting is one of the really big sort of kind of areas that that needs to be addressed, and we just don't see anybody else addressing that. The current players right now are either trying to monetize the listeners, which we don't think is a big enough opportunity, or they work as agencies, so they do a lot of manual work. We've spoken with some of these big guys like Stitcher and Midroll and Audioboom, and they have really big manual sales teams that do that. There is no tech component in it. Nobody's done that thus far. I think it's only a matter of time. We want to be the first ones, and we want to be the leaders, and we hope that you can join us to make it happen.
All righty, very well done. Thank you, Anna.
Okay.
So,
all right, big round of applause for the companies. I just want to say these were all very high quality companies. All the presentations were very tight. And the investors' questions were okay, but some work on the investor questions. I'm kidding. You did a good job. But you see how nice that format is, Tyler, how brisk it is, and it keeps things moving. But next time, 3 minutes for the founders, because you can see their pitches in that last minute. They're like looking for something to talk about. They're talking about market size.
The 3 minute idea is very new.
Started back in the day, right? 7 minutes, and people told us it was too short.
Insane.
Then we went to 5. It was too short.
It's gone from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. 3 does work in America.
Well, now we're just going to tell, the next one, we're just tell people to come up, say the name of their company, their tagline, and then get off. Yeah. Then we'll tell you what we think. But the next part of this is really fun, Tyler. What we'll have everybody do is give their number 3, number 2, and their number 1 companies through the lens of the one they are most apt to want to take a meeting with and invest in. Not which ones you want as a consumer, not which ones you thought gave the best presentation. Through the lens of actual dollars you would be most interested to put money in. For number 3 and number 2, you just say the name of the company. You do not give them any praise. But for the number 1, you say the name of the company and why you pick them. This way, the people who get 3rd and 2nd, they realize there's still more work to do, right? They got the bronze, they got the silver, but they didn't get any praise. And no ties, no honorable mentions. It's honorable that they all got here. And then if you've invested in the company already, then you can't vote for that company. So it works against your company. They lose the ability to get points. Make sense, Tyler?
I got it. This is how we used to do the launch conference as well.
Open Angel Forum as well.
So everyone picks
just keep
their...
it tight. So you go around the horn and just tell everybody.
Who's your number 3, right? So do we need a little 10 seconds and some theme music?
2.
Or everybody's ready?
Yeah, everybody should be ready. You should have been doing this. I put the names of the companies in there just so everybody is clear. We saw Zvuk. We saw Stellar, we saw Play Pilot, we saw Lunch.co, not Launch.co, Lunch.co, Gigapay for the gig economy, Epic Foods for people who want to eat vegetables, and Brick App for people whose phones are on perennially 5%. Do 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 do. Pick your number 3, 2, and 1. Do 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 do. Everybody's ready. They're looking at me, asking me to stop singing. Great. Tyler, you got it from here. I have to jump off, everybody. I got to go do taping a podcast, but this was fantastic. I hope we do it on the regular, maybe quarterly, Tyler. Be a good
For
cadence or
Tech Fest
something.
in September 7th and 8th.
Okay, so the next remote demo day remotedemoday.com/Nordics
Yes.
will be at Stockholm Tech Fest.
And
Good.
let's do
And,
the
is that going to be in person as an event?
Do the all-in podcast as right before, after, whatever, September 7th or 8th. See if the gang's up for that.
Are you doing it virtual, or are you going to try
it'll
to
be
be
virtual,
in person?
but it's going to be. I'm going to have multiple podcasts. Gary V and everybody, you do your podcast with your guests.
I love it.
But it will bundle them in this. It's a really cool conference platform that by Founders is just backed. It's called Tame Events. It's super cool from Copenhagen.
I've seen like 5 of these recently, and they're all like creating cool lobbies and networking. So I'm excited to try it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for doing it. And thanks, Tyler, for including me.
Pleasure.
Peace out.
Alrighty. So let's run through your if everyone could give their number 3, their bronze medal. Ted, do you have your bronze medal recipient?
Yes. Lunch.com.
Lunch. North Zone, Maxine.
Stellar.
One more time.
Stellar.
And Nicholas, Open Ocean.
Stellar.
Stellar, 2 bronzes. Eric, by Founder.
Play Pilot.
Play Pilot. Okay. Congrats on the bronze medals there. Let's do silvers. Ted, EQT.
Stellar.
Ooh. Okay. Maxine.
Gigapay.
Ooh. Okay, Nicholas.
I'm just repeating what Maxine is saying all the time. So Gigapay.
And Eric, by Founders.
Gigapay as well.
Whoa, 3 silvers for Gigapay. Nice. And now the gold medals. A lot of emotions on the line here. Ted, EQT.
Gigapay.
Whoa. All right.
Did you want to say more stuff?
Yeah, go ahead and give the why on the gold medal.
It's interesting. I've sort of shaken the hands of Team Gigapay, but I've never sat down with them, which I have with Lunch.co and Stellar. So I would love to do that with the Gigapay.
Go a lunch offer. And I can tell you that Ted always offers to pay for the lunch. Incredibly generous individual that he is.
Via Gigapay.
So I would take him up on it. And by the way, he's one of the best foodies in all of Stockholm, and he knows every amazing restaurant in the town. So let him pick where to eat. Maxine, North Zone.
Can I please just ask, which investor does not pay for lunch if they're taking out a founder? That's like
I like that I'm getting credit for that.
Exactly. This is Ted. He always has time in it. It's like, yeah, well, wow. But no, my gold medal goes to Svook, who I'd love to spend some time with.
Sounds like a lunch date as well. Okay. Congrats to both of them. And Nicholas.
Well,
get out of
here as well. Yeah. So
what is going on with you and Maxine? You had 3 of the same questions, and all 3 medals are the same.
Yeah, incredible. Great pitch, a lot of good energy. And then I think that the future of podcasting is fantastic. It's going to be huge. I'm not saying this only because of the mega Joe Rogan deal, but in general, I think there's a lot of potential there. And in terms of monetizing and there's a lot of potential there.
Sounds like you'll have a 3-person lunch then. Eric, by Founders.
Who will pay that?
We are happy to pay.
Who's your gold medal?
We already invested. So, you know, Anna, on this one, you take the bill. We'll charge it over to us.
Done.
But you were not.
So,
which one did you invest in already, though?
That was Swook. So I won't mention Swook, even though, of course,
that's your goal by default. But
I'm biased.
Who?
Yeah, but no, I was also very impressed with Stellar. I think there's definitely something there. It's a space that's growing very, very rapidly. If you're looking at, like, actually, I'm looking right now at my what is it called? Shit.
Your stomach, your belly fat.
Computer screen.
Oh, shit! I suddenly blanks on it.
This is a fun game. We're guessing what you're looking at.
Hey, this is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, trainer.
Peloton.
Yeah, but it's Peloton. Thank you. Yes, and it's definitely a space that's growing. So very scalable, and I think your model is very engaging, which I definitely think is an opportunity. So I would love to continue the conversation with you.
Very cool. So it's it looks like Swook and then GigaPay and Stellar if we had to add them up and divide, and then some honorable mentions with Lunch and Play Pilot, two silvers, two bronzes there as well. So awesome. Thank you to everybody for helping with this. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And there was certainly a lot learned to get ready for September, where we will do an even much bigger, much better version of this with hundreds of investors like we do every year at TechFest. But we will make it try and imagine what the best possible demo day online can possibly be. So I'm going to work with everybody on this call and everyone else who's not on the call to try and figure out how we can assemble the coolest thing ever. And that'll be my to-do list. But hopefully I will be seeing you all back there in Stockholm before too long. But thank you especially to Nicholas from Finland, and my founders, and Eric from Denmark. And it was very cool to bring the Nordics together like this. I wish there were more events that did more of that, you know, because it's a really special part of the world. And I hope there was a lot of Americans watching who got to get a little taste of how it works. And hopefully they'll do that in September again as well. Anyway, thank you, everybody. It was a real pleasure. And
organizing, and I think this virtual event here has shown that we actually don't need to all time fly to Stockholm. We can actually do it remote, and there's a lot of value in that as well.
Yeah, appreciate it. We'll get the technical working better, and all the way around. So only up and to the right on the next one. Thanks again, everybody, and see you next time.
Go to bed, Tyler. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.